All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the House of August Show. And I, as always, am your host, the man of the house, JT Auger. This is, what is the date today? It is March 12th of 2019. And we have quite the show. With me tonight? Some of our hosts, man, everybody's getting sick. I'm a little, I've got a little bit of congestion going on. Joel and Nicole are with us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
And you're both feeling under the weather, as I understand it.
Yeah, so bad. I don't know what we have, but it is horrible.
That sucks. I'm so sorry. Because I know how you feel. But Adam, Saint Face, or Metal Face, whatever, Face. She has so many aliases, much like the devil. We have our regulars with us. Everybody's starting late tonight, I think. Hopefully we'll have a big crew with us later as we go. Disclaimers. We will be recording, and the recording will be up on YouTube, but just the audio. There will be no video recording of what goes on in the chat as the show continues. This is not a family-friendly show. We curse, talk about all kinds of horrific, horrible things. We make jokes about all types of things, and we're just all around horrible people. So if you are not a sinner like we are, best you go to church and leave the show now. That being said, I have been all over yesterday and today posting about how we're going to talk about Michael Jackson. I even played a couple of songs. The last song I played was a live version of his Just Another Part of Me, which it means something to me as a kid because I grew up going to Disneyland because I'm a California kid, so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me. But my parents used to take me, and they had that Captain EO, and that's where that song is from. It was the end song to the Captain EO experience, which now is Star Tours. That's what they replaced it with, which is great. Star Tours is great, but man, Captain EO was something else back then. 3D was sort of new, and that was the big draw. And of course, Michael Jackson and Angelica Houston played the woman in that. I'm getting into nostalgia now, but I love that stuff, and that's ultimately what we're going to be talking about tonight. There's two major topics we're going to be talking about, which is Michael Jackson and this new Leaving Neverland documentary. And I say that loosely. It's a four-hour, two-part documentary. For anyone who hasn't seen it, if you're planning to, warning, there's going to be tons of spoilers. I'm going to talk all about what's spoken about in the film, which shouldn't be a problem since generally the gist, I think everybody knows about by this point. But we're going to be talking about that. And then halfway through the show, we're going to be talking to Robynne, who is with us tonight. And she has a presentation she would like to share with you all. And I'm excited about it. It has mostly to do with the politicization. I said it the first time, of gender, I guess, gender identity and the cause of the transgender community and the follies of that and her personal experience with all that. I'm excited to talk to her about it. We're going to be talking about that probably 7:30 or a little after. Before we get into any of that, though, I would like to maybe get some basic stuff out of the way, just some current event stuff. And I always like to do entertainment reviews because I watch a lot of stuff. Probably too much stuff. But,
We do
anyway,
too.
Right? Like I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time watching other people's stuff, and then I complain about it instead of like, well, motherfucker, go make something if you're so much better. Which, of course, by my understanding, like, well, of course I could do better. Who are you talking to? I haven't, so take that with a grain of salt. That it is. Anyway, so there's I don't know if you guys heard, before we get into the entertainment reviews, I guess everybody's up in arms about Trump signing Bibles. Did you hear about this? He went down to New Orleans or something like that, and I guess they had like
Alabama.
Oh, it was Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
That is a little different. But I guess they experienced what was it, like a natural
tornadoes?
disaster of some sort. Was it a tornado?
Yeah, tornadoes.
And so they went through some disaster relief or something, and he was down there specifically because of that. And I guess he ended up signing Bibles, and people were up in arms. Now, my first question when I first heard this was, why is that a problem? Are people not allowed to sign Bibles? I don't. Was he handing out Bibles? Because then I was like, okay, well, that might be weird. Like, if he brought a bunch of Bibles with him, like, look, I know y'all launched houses and everything, but hey, here's a Bible. And, just so you know, I signed it. Like, that would be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to sell this? What the fuck? Nobody likes you. Like, like, I can't say nobody likes you, but like a lot of, if you follow the media,
a lot of people don't. Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who are very mad at that man. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then I found out, no, he didn't bring Bibles with him, and that wasn't what he went down there for. These were people who came to him with their Bibles and were like, hey, so glad you're here. So nice to see your chubby round face and your blonde hair and your orange skin. Please sign my Bible. And he was like, well, all right, sure. So he signed in a bunch of Bibles, and people were really happy about it. That's what I found out. And then I found out that that's a common practice with presidents, that this is something that has been done for decades with presidents.
I didn't know
that. I
had
no idea that this was the case. Yeah, I didn't know that either. But so this makes this outrage yet again something that is fucking fabricated. I'm so tired of that. Like, if you're going to be mad about something, be mad about something that's legitimate. Like, really, you didn't have a problem, apparently, when, I guess, Carter and, I don't know, they listed a bunch of different presidents who've been known to sign Bibles. It's kind of a common practice. So nobody ever said anything like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that to any of those presidents. But now that it's Trump, now it's a problem. Like, it's stupid. So I don't know if anybody has a deeper understanding on that.
What were they saying? What was the actual outrage behind it?
Well, they were saying that it was just in poor taste, that that is in some fashion. They made it out to be like it was sacrilegious. They didn't say it was sacrilegious, but they danced around that. Like, it's a Bible. Yeah. You're a president.
They were acting like it was tacky.
Right.
Okay.
So, it was stupid, and I thought that was
stupid.
So, entertainment. There's a few different shows that I would like to go over. Now, some of them are not so new, but I've not mentioned them before, like the Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is not a show that everybody, I guess, can see because it's only, if I understand this correctly, it's not on.
No, it's not. You have to sign up for CBS, their streaming service, in order to watch it. So, yeah, I would love to watch it, but I'm not going to pay extra money to watch it. Fuck that.
And frankly, neither will I. Yeah. And I haven't. I download my stuff.
Exactly.
For free. The PvP is wonderful.
Yeah.
BitTorrents are amazing, and try and stop me. But for a free show, which it is for me, it's really visually, it's stunning. They're on their second season. They're more than halfway done with their second season, actually. The first season began heavily with leftist SJW overtones. There was some serious, clear, definite, some of the decisions being made, some of the people being highlighted, the characters, and their you have the chunky girl because you've never had a chubby person on Star Trek apparently, and they want to make sure that they're inclusive, and body shaming's a problem, and so beautiful at every weight and size, that kind of thing. And then of course the lead character is a black woman with a man's name. I don't quite understand why that's necessary, but like her name is Michael. She used to be on The Walking Dead, and they killed her off. She was the one who they pulled her. They opened up the coffin, and she was supposed to be alive. She came out.
Oh yeah,
she was zombie. That's her. That's who the lead is. Okay. And this all takes place prior to the original series, like 10 years before the original series starts. Cool. They rely heavily special effects wise, and the overall visual design is very much taken from the new Star Trek movies. You've got the light glare happening all the time. Some people complain about that. Yeah, the lens flare. People complain about that. I don't have a problem with it. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool.
I mean, it makes it look more sci-fi, but
I don't have a problem with it.
Doesn't it like actually say something about how far we've come? That because the original Star Trek was actually very progressive for its time in terms of diversity. Like you had, right, a black woman in, Lieutenant Uhura. And like this was the '60s,
first interracial,
right? Like, yeah,
was on Star Trek between Captain Kirk and Uhura.
And now it's like, okay, now who's oppressed? Fat people? Okay, I guess. Like, yeah, let's just put one of those on the show.
Like, I'm fat. The only person
like we ran out of people.
Me. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the whole fat shaming, fat oppression. Like, there should be a little bit of shame in that. Like, I need more people telling me, too chubby, fat piece of shit. Because that's what gets you to stop. Like, what, are you sure you should be eating that? Every time I go to put something in my mouth, I need somebody there going, is that really a good idea? Is that a good idea, you think? Is that what's going to help you out today? You think is that going to be a good long-term decision? Like, I don't understand why we're trying to like, no, you're good the way you are. No, go ahead and eat that. No, eat a salad, you fucking chubby fuck. Like, do something about your weight. You're killing yourself. And that's not healthy. Like, we shame people for smoking. Why wouldn't we shame everyone for all unhealthy decisions, right? Like, there should be a fat people zone. Like, there's a smoking section. Like, you eat your fatty foods over there, fatty. We don't want you to eat where normal food is. Fatty food, fatty section.
I mean, the restaurants do kind of break themselves out like that, though. Like, I mean, you have burger places and you have, salad places, and they're separate establishments. It's not even sections.
He's not wrong.
You're in a whole. See, that's the problem. You need everything in a restaurant so that you can have the section there, so you can see the normal people looking at you abnormally, like you're not supposed to be that way, and eating their salads while looking over at you nervously and whispering to their children, like, "This is why we tell you should play."
Do you want to be like him?
You need to realize, like, you're not looked at positively, and you should, because it's a lie. If everybody's telling you, yeah, you're beautiful. No, you're not. You're really not. Nobody likes that fucking tire. Nobody wants that. Get out of here with that. So, and that's why it's such a another topic. But anyway, so back to Star Trek. How did we get on to fat people? Oh, right, because there's a fatty on the show. I actually like her too. She's a redhead, the chubby girl, and she's got a great butt, and she's kind of bubbly in personality. The show is really well done. Like the science-y part of it, they've gone way off the rails with this like new engine that requires spores, and it makes them jump through like wormholes that they create. It's really weird, but it's interesting. It's fun. They've got Captain Pike on there now. They didn't have him the first season, but this new second season they've got Captain Pike, which for those who don't know Star Trek, was the original captain for the pilot episode, and then they reference him in the new movies. I like the guy who's playing it. I think he's a cool character. But anyway, it's a great show. If you get a chance to watch it or steal it, I recommend you should. What's the other show? Oh, the Orville is kind of. I know we've talked about it before, but I kind of wanted to mention it real quick. They recently had like a 2-part serious sort of thing. They had a story arc that went over 2 episodes, and it took one of their key characters and turned him into a real asshole. And then there was death and destruction, and for a show that has prided itself on taking itself not too seriously. It's Star Trek meets Family Guy. The Star Trek: The Next Generation, because it really is. It's the spiritual successor to Star Trek: The Next Generation. The feel, the vibe, everything about it has that sense to it, and there's that overall, like, every episode is a standalone. It has its own message, kind of a fable or a life lesson, as it were. And they went into their own arc of like the Borg, as it were. And it got serious, and it was kind of cool. I like the show. I think we
watched the first season of it, and I just found it like it couldn't make up its mind what it wanted to be. If it wanted to be funny or if it wanted to be a drama, and I just found it kind of corny. I haven't watched
It does get corny.
Season. Mm-hmm.
You're right. It does. It gets corny. It gets easy. I grew up in the '90s, though. Like all of the sitcoms and all the shows that were
true.
on, like
I grew up with there's a sense of
right. So there's that corniness for me comes across as kind of nostalgic. I'm in that age group now where like nostalgia is kind of like I want to remember back when, because all of a sudden I'm not young anymore. So I don't know. I liked it. You're right, though. That is a good and honest critique of the Orville, that it doesn't really know what it wants to be. There's times it's serious, and there's times where that seriousness is it gets underscaled because they do throw in the Family Guy jokes, where and sometimes the jokes work, but sometimes they they don't, and they fuck up the seriousness. And so it has its problems, but I don't know. I don't mind the show. I went
into it with expectations of it being, I thought it was going to be just freaking hilarious. And then it wasn't what I had pictured at all. So with the expectations, it really made it kind of suck.
That might be the problem, because I went into it thinking it's going to be total ass. This is going to be a stupid ass fucking bullshit show. You make cartoons, dude. What do you know about sci-fi? Like, get the fuck out of here. So when it sort of worked, I was like, wow, this works a lot more than I thought it would. So maybe I should just give it a try. There are issues. One of the things that I noticed when they had a chance to have, like, starship battles, one of the things that I liked about Star Trek was a lot like reality, ships, you have an overall theme to ships, but they're all different. They have different styles and designs. You have different classes of ships. You've got your gunships, your frigates, your science vessels, and yada yada yada. So because of that, all these different ships look different. And then that didn't happen. They had this battle, and every ship that belonged to Earth, they all looked the same. The only difference was maybe size differences. Like, oh, it's a smaller version, but it's identical in style, design, and feature. And I was just like, this seems lazy. It didn't come across to me like, oh, of course, because it's uniform. They want you to know whose ships are whose. No, it just came across as, you guys are lazy and you didn't want to take the time to design a bunch of little different ships. So I thought that was funny. But then there was those are the smaller things I wanted to talk about. Now to some of the bigger ones, entertainment-wise. American Gods is back, and I don't know if any of you are fans of that show, but if you're not,
you love it.
Don't talk to me. And if you don't know the show, go and watch it. It is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Neil Gaiman. I've been reading his stuff since I was a kid. There's hardly the only thing I don't like about the guy is the woman he chose to make his wife. Other than that, the man can do no wrong. And American Gods is amazing. The book is phenomenal. The show that they've made off of it, even though it strays from it, it doesn't stray in a negative fashion. It's exciting. It's like, I know I'm watching something that doesn't follow the book exactly, and that's okay. The way they do it the right way, right? Like they stray the right way. The characters are wonderful. Ian McShane is an actor who, what the fuck? What has he done that hasn't been successful? Like, that man is gold.
True.
Like Deadwood, I can watch that today, and I've seen that. Like, I've watched Deadwood 2 or 3 times over since it first came out, and it still is just as good then or now as it was then. And I bring up Deadwood because Ian McShane was one of the primary actors in that show. I watched the season premiere for the second season of American Gods. I'm so excited, dude. You see a lot more of Anansi, which is the spider god, who I don't know the actor's name, the black dude who plays him, but he's fucking hilarious, and he's got some of the best lines in that fucking show. It's a fucking card from a fucking vending machine, dummy. I know I'm not getting the line right, but he's so fucking hilarious. But yeah, go and see it. I'm so thrilled to watch this new season unfold. And then on top of that, Good Omens is a new show that I've seen trailers for.
Oh, is that being made into a show now?
It is.
I read that book back in high school, and it was great.
Fucking A. It is great, and I'm so excited. The actors they've got playing, they've got who's the good Doctor Who? What was his name? The guy who played he's
that
like
really depends on who you ask.
It really does.
Who's the good Doctor Who? How to split the fandom into?
Are you thinking David Tennant?
Yes, Tennant.
Yeah, that's the one I like.
David Tennant is the demon in that, and then the other guy. I'm so bad with names. He was in Tron 2.0. I was the bar keep in that. He's been in other stuff too. He was in Underworld. He was the leader of the werewolves. Everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He plays the angel in that. It's an amazing story. Go and read the book. The trailer for this show, Good Omens, looks amazing. I'm excited for it. It's another Neil. obviously American Gods must have done so well that they were like, well, let's do more of his stuff. And for anybody who doesn't know who Neil Gaiman is, your kids probably do, because Coraline was also written by him, which was the kids show. I think it was a kids book to start with.
It was a movie. Yeah, it was booked in the movie.
That
movie was great.
Yeah, it's really good. Very dark and twisted, but still so a fun kids movie. Yeah. I just think it's great that they're doing more and more of Neil Gaiman stuff. The man deserves this. He really does. He's just he's a virtuoso, man, in his own field, in his own artistic style. But so that's what's going on in entertainment. Last but not least, Captain Marvel came out.
By the way, before we shift gears to Captain Marvel, I did see Alita this weekend. It is fantastic. I know we talked about it last show, but Warren's talking about it again. That movie is great.
And we'll talk about it just a little bit as to how it pertains to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel apparently did really, really well.
Yeah, of course.
In the box office this weekend. I think it was 455 million worldwide, 155 of that here in America. Now, I think it beats Alita Battle Angel in the box office by a healthy margin too, because I think Alita has been out for a little while longer, and it's only at 360. Captain Marvel's been out just over a weekend and already beat it.
I think everyone is basically like, everyone's talking about this movie. People are saying it's going to be good or bad. I'll be the judge of that. I'm going to go see it. I think that's, and so of course everyone's seeing it just to see whether it's good or not.
There's a lot of controversy when it comes to this Captain Marvel, because a lot of people have been rather critical of the way it's been promoted.
The way Brie Larson is marketing it,
especially by Brie Larson, who has made she has, at least on a couple occasions, had to dial back what she has said, where she's had to backpedal. Well, what I meant by that was, and her backpedal always is a lot more reasonable. But it's like, if you'd have just said that the first time. For example, she said something like, "I don't want the red carpet, the premiere to be all white men," or something to that effect. And it was just very, exclusionary in the way she worded it, and people, rightly so.
Not like I want these people that typically aren't comic book movie fans to see this. It's I want the core audience not to see it.
Yeah, I want white
there.
people to not be there, and it was just very much. It came across very negative and very exclusionary, and when she was criticized for that, she came out to say, "I'm not saying that there will be less seats at the table. I'm saying let's add more seats to the table," and that is reasonable. I can get with that.
That's totally fine.
If she'd have just said, I'd love to see more people who are not naturally at this movie and at these events to be there, to feel welcome. Absolutely. You want,
because these are movies for everyone.
Right. And that's, everybody can get behind that. And that certainly was the vibe you got from Gal Gadot when it came to how she promoted Wonder Woman, which is something I mentioned last time. But anyway, I saw the movie again for free. I refused to pay money for that. Here was my thought process going into this. I will watch it, and if it's good, I'll spend money on it. And if it's not, you're not going to dime from me. And I saw it, and I didn't think that it was very good. In fact,
that's what I've been hearing. It's very okay.
Yeah, that's what the reviews saying.
It's kind of generic. And we were talking about this, Joel and Nicole and I, a little bit in chat earlier today. Is that there's just an overabundance of superhero movies, and there's a burnout. There's I'm a burnt out on this genre, and it's just overloaded.
They've become formulaic.
Yes, that's and that's definitely kind of what happens here. And I mean, I don't know. It just there were a lot of discrepancies writing wise, a lot of plot holes, a lot of things that just, women always complain about guys. No, I shouldn't say, let me rephrase that. A common feminist trope is that they complain that men hit on them all the time and make them feel uncomfortable. And one of the
coincidentally, that literally happened to Brie Larson a while back. Like, she complained on Twitter that a airport security guy asked for her number, and everyone was like, he thought you were pretty, and so he asked for your number. Like, what is wrong with you that you're complaining about this? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that gave you sort of a precursor understanding of what you could expect from Brie Larson. And boy, has she stuck to her guns on being that type of woman. She's not backing down from that, I'll tell you that. But they've got a scene in there where some guy's like, you got to smile for me, sweetheart. And it's just so over the top that it's like, we get it that it's such a common eye roll fucking trope that I've never, ever heard a guy say that. I'm not saying guys don't do that. I'm just saying it's not as prevalent as it's been made out to be.
Or it's not as over the
top
like that.
Aggressive and creeper status as it's made out to be by some of these people. Like, I'll tell you, as a woman, I suffer. Well, I can't say I suffer because it doesn't bother me. I have monster resting bitch face. If I got pissed off and started a riot every fucking time some man walked by me and said, "Jesus, smile," I'd never get anything done in a day because my natural resting face is not a happy looking one. I get told that shit all the time. And guess what? I don't fucking throw a fit about it because I literally regularly walk by men and tell them, "Hey, smile. It's not that bad." But I'm not a sexist piece of shit about it. Strangely, I don't know. It's Jesus Christ. Guys are going to ask for your number. Guys are going to tell you to smile. That's okay. Keep trucking. It's fine. You'll live. I feel like at the point that a woman is so fucking weak-willed and weak-minded that a man telling her to smile is the worst part about her fucking day, she's either got the best fucking life ever, or maybe needs to go back to primary school and relearn how to woman a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The overall vibe, there's a definite feminist feel to sort of the vibe of the story, girl power.
That was also there though in the original comic books. And that's, I don't know. I feel like everybody is pointing that out as a major negative. They're like, "Oh my God, it's feminist propaganda." Well, if you ever read the original comic books, it wasn't a woman sitting in the kitchen, just for the record.
No, you're right. Well, if you know the original, if you know the character at all, then the original character, Captain Marvel, was a man. That's who that character started out as. This character has been rewritten and their story changed 4 or 5 times over, and this is just the current iteration of that character, which is fine. It's not a problem. Well, they even introduced
the main, because a lot happened with Marvel, the guy.
Yes,
before the mantle got changed to, whatever her name was.
Right.
I don't know. This is from cursory Wikipedia skims of these character arcs. So
good job, Adam.
I know. I did my research. Not really.
But they left out a lot. They changed the male. The male character is represented in the film, but they changed the character to a female, and that character has such a minimal part that there's no real justification for changing the sex of the character except to placate to those who follow that agenda. Do you know what I'm saying?
They made Marvel a woman.
Yeah, correct.
Ah.
And they didn't get into any of the backstory of who Marvel was, what Marvel went through. So it's just, all right, I guess. The list of problems with that film is extensive, to say the least. If you take it as a standalone, if you know nothing about the film, then yeah, I would say it's a fair assessment to say, well, that was fun. It was all right. It was by no means great. And in my opinion, when you compare the story, the special effects, the acting, and the overall ambience of the film with Alita knocks it out of the park. Absolutely. As a film, as a piece of art, Alita blows Captain Marvel out the door. There's just no comparison, in my opinion. And then so there's some issues with the box office, the tail of the tape, as it were. In that, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but on Twitter there were scores of people who were proclaiming. In fact, one of our own members, Christian, said that he went to see the film, and his experience followed suit with what these scores of people on Twitter were saying, that they bought a ticket to the movie, got in the theater, opening day, nobody's there. Where are all these people who are seeing this movie? Where's all this money coming from? Because tons of people are claiming that they went to the theater and they were one of a handful of people. There were people who were showing, how sometimes you go to some theaters, they make you pick your seats on the screen. Like, okay, these are the seats that are available. So where would you like to sit in the open seat? Like, all of them were taken up. They had to sit near the front. And when they got into the theater to see the movie, there was nobody there to take up all those seats that were apparently taken up. So that was interesting. And I don't, what does it mean? I don't know. It seems curious to me that the story of those who personally went to go see the film on opening day doesn't seem to match up with what the money is telling us.
Well, I think I was actually having this talk with Angel the other day about another movie we'd gone to see. I think, and I could be wrong, I don't know what it is there, but I know here, and it can't be that uncommon if we have it in goddamn Wyoming. They have these memberships, like these VIP memberships where you're guaranteed a certain amount of movies per week or month or whatever. You have to go in at the first of whatever this cycle is and pick your movies and your seats. And they're basically prepaid with your membership. So I think that what could be contributing to that are those basically forcibly pre-picked seats, and then maybe people just couldn't make it to whatever showing they picked or something. So I'm not sure that would account for all of it, of course, but that could certainly account for at least some of what we're seeing, because I know that's a thing that happens here, and I'd imagine in a more populated place like California, where, I don't know, maybe they just were upset because they realized they couldn't have straws and were like, fuck it, I'm gonna stay home and drink out of my straw. I don't even know. But yeah, so I think that's definitely something that you'll see swaying those numbers of, you're looking at this whole theater where there's nothing going on, there's nobody there, but most of the seats were bought, which was the case, Heathen said when he went to see Captain Marvel here in Wyoming.
Okay, so when he even saw it, was the theater empty or was it packed?
He said it was kind of middle of the road. He said that to walk in and look, it looked like there were a fair few seats open.
Okay.
But sorry, I hit the button. But not but when he went to buy them, there were literally 2 tickets left. But when he got in, the theater was half full. So it was kind of middle of the road, and that type of discrepancy certainly, I think, could be explained with, they just couldn't make it to the showing, or they forgot about it, whatever.
I don't know. Well, on top of that, there's issue with the reviews. They were a lot of the review sites, specifically Rotten Tomatoes, which has had problems with credibility for some time now, has yet again come under fire by critics for removing a ton of negative reviews, which they claimed were all troll reviews that were placed before the movie was released. Some people are coming out complaining that their negative review was legitimate and that it was removed, and there's some speculation that this is a excuse or justification given by Rotten Tomatoes to go ahead and remove a ton, regardless of whether they were legitimate or not. But curious, it's not the other way around when people are pointing out that there are bots who are posting positive reviews with the same like verbatim wording. Like, let's just be clear, this movie is really good, yada, 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 yada. And it's just the same review over and over and over again. But that's perfectly fine to leave up. And of course, this adjusts the actual percentages that they post and leaves one to wonder just how credible and legitimate the percentages they're showing us really are. So there's issue with that. There's issue with the box office and and then I just found out that the breakdown gender-wise for who is watching the movie, more than 61% globally of moviegoers who saw this movie opening weekend, Captain Marvel, male. for a feminist woman movie, it is relying heavily on its male audience who went and saw it. So take that however you want to. I think it's curious. It's kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm not too thrilled with Captain Marvel. I don't think it earned the hype that it was given. I think it's made mistakes.
Josh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, because of Rotten Tomatoes, how it's gotten with trolls and bots and other stuff like that, it's really tough to tell with a lot of these movies. We actually look at the IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. They have a user review section and then a critics, what they call a Metacritic, which averages the critics' scores and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I found that to be way better and more accurate because trolls don't go on to IMDb like they do Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, gotcha. That's good to know. So I'm curious, have you looked up what Metacritic has to say about Captain Marvel?
Yeah, Metacritic gave it a 65, which is pretty much with most of the reviews I've read, where it's basically like, yeah, it's okay. It's meh. It could have been a lot better. And her acting was wooden. Her character has no emotion, and the 90s nostalgia is kind of
one of the funny things. That was one of the funny things that I noticed, and other people have made mention of, that she's constantly being told through, like, one of the main factors with her character, she's being told, you're too emotional. So when she gets, and the issue with that is that it doesn't come across as having the effect that you expect. You as the audience aren't really affected by that because she's not. Like, it doesn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's supposed to be this frustrating and infuriating thing, and it just comes across as confusing instead because she doesn't play overly emotional. I mean, she's. I wouldn't say she's entirely wooden or robotic, but emotional. She doesn't. I wouldn't call it that in the least. So I don't know. I thought that was funny. But that's about all there is to say about Captain Marvel. Let's get on to, because we're we've jumped past the time I wanted to allot for all of that. I want to get into this Michael Jackson business. Now, some of my team took the time, and I appreciate this because it's a lot. They took the time to watch Leaving Neverland. If any of you have watched it, then you know it's 4 hours. It's a 2-part thing, 2 hours each, and it's harrowing. It's certainly
I
once
enjoyed
you
it.
Down, yeah, it's quite the wild roller coaster. It was a road down nostalgia,
Yeah.
It was nostalgia road because a lot of the footage, the pictures, it's all from the 80s and 90s. A lot of it.
It made me feel like a little kid watching that.
It did. You watching those little commercials that he's in.
Yes.
And, all of those posters and all that promotional material from his tours. Like it was wild, man. So once you sit down and you actually get to watching it, the time goes by fast.
It flew
it's
by.
Not like you're tapping your. Yeah, you get sucked in, and it's difficult at times. I gotta say, when I was finished with that 4 hours, I was like, how can this not be true?
Right? They are so believable. Holy shit. I mean, I even know I knew going in the different things that going in, I was like, these guys are full of shit. They're in it for money at this point. They're going to probably sue the estate. But then I watched it and I was like, damn, that is believable as fuck.
Yeah. Scott just posted a picture of a stuffed animal, what they call plushies now. I don't know why they stopped calling them stuffed animals, but whatever.
I don't know.
Whatever you want to call them. That was from Captain EO. And I had that same exact thing, Scott. When I was a kid, I loved that little thing. He went everywhere with me. He was my favorite with his little wings, his chubby little. Yeah, he was fun. But yeah, so the show. These guys, Wade Robson and what's the other cat's name? Safe Chuck, but I can't remember his first name. They're two kids who tell
Jimmy, right? Is it Jimmy? It's Jimmy
you're right. It's James Safe Chuck. So these two grown adults now tell their stories of how they came to meet and be involved with Michael Jackson. Safe Chuck was in a Coca-Cola commercial with Michael Jackson back in the 80s. Wade Robson ended up meeting him because he was a huge fan when he was a little kid, watched all his videos, learned how to dance like him, ended up going to a contest where he won, and the first prize was to meet Michael Jackson. So now before I get into this any further, let's talk about Michael's background. I don't think anybody's unclear as to the fact that Michael and his entire family are very troubled individuals. Well, he was.
Jesus, yes. Yeah.
And, his father was very abusive to Michael and his siblings. Very intent on you ever watch those old like the circus, the guy with the top hat, the main guy in a circus,
the ringmaster,
thank you. So like in Dumbo, he's portrayed as this rather gruff and very selfish and a slave driver, and that's kind of how I picture Joe Jackson with his kids. And there's some stories, and that's another episode all on its own. All the stories that have come to light over the years of what Joe Jackson did to these poor kids in order to make them become successful. Like they all became this power collective, the Jackson Five and even the daughters in their own right, LaToya, Janet, extremely successful, all of them, and that's all as a result of what Joe did. But it came at a cost, and it was a heavy price. He abused those fucking kids massively to get them to toe the line, to put them through a regimen of training to become what they were. And Michael, I think, being as young as he was, because he was the youngest member of the Jackson 5, was, I think, the most affected.
Yeah.
And it went both ways. I think he is the most talented of all of his siblings. But I also think he was the most affected by what Joe put him through.
Yeah, he definitely seemed to be the most damaged by far. Very stunted.
And when you look at him in that light, it comes as no surprise why, when the first chance he got, he left the Jackson 5. He left his family. He didn't denounce them. He didn't oust them from his life completely, but he went his own way. He wanted to get away from that lifestyle and those people, which correlated to abuse, as far as from his perspective. I think it makes perfect sense to me that the minute he, like a slave on the plantation, man, the minute the boss ain't looking, you run for the fucking hills, and don't look back, and pray that they don't come looking for you. And hold on, funny you don't know that word, because that's basically you, Augur. What, ringleader? I don't believe the story they told. It's more of the bullshit Me Too movement. What's not true, heathen? I'm curious to know what he's saying. I'll have to bring you on in a minute. Anyway, so there is no one today in entertainment who has the stardom, that level of stardom that Michael Jackson held. Like that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, he's the king of pop.
Like, from the moment he was a child, he was inducted into this lifestyle, and he was famous when most of, like, at the age of 5. Like, you know what I mean? Like, most of us are just learning not to piss.
As far as he's aware, he has never not been famous.
Right. And I don't think most of us can comprehend what that must be like. He's never known. There's video footage. They I think it was on the grounds at the Neverland Ranch. They made a grocery store, and they hired actors to like go walk around and pretend like they were buying groceries, just so that he could have the experience. Because he couldn't do that. He can't just go to a grocery store. He can't do normal life. Like, all those things that we all take for granted. I mean, yes, he's a multimillionaire. Yes, the world knows him. The world loves him. Blah, 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 blah. But that semblance of a normal life that all of us take for granted, it's all gone. Can't go out for dinner to wherever you want. Can't just go to a grocery store. You can't have a normal life. And so with that understanding, having friends and being involved with children as much as he was, I think has a dual. I think two things were going on there. Number one, kids were the only ones, primarily, I think, that weren't out to get him, right? They weren't there to use him, abuse him. They were just kids, right?
Yeah, he enjoyed their innocence. And I always thought that he was so stunted emotionally and psychologically that he was very much a child himself.
Yeah, he was deprived of childhood, basically, because of the way his dad pushed him. And so,
yeah, I think he saw these kids as his peers, not just little kids, but as more of his peers than other adults were.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm reading what Heathen has to say. He chose to stay in that life. What kind of choice is that really? Did you think that after all, when he finally stepped away from his family, was it possible for him to suddenly disappear into the ether and become unknown? I don't know that was really an option.
I mean, he could have chose to retire and not be in the entertainment industry. I don't know if that to him seemed to be an option, since that was his whole identity in life.
And not only that, but his art and the stage was all he knew. It's what he loved, creating music. I don't know that, what else was he going to do? He did want away from his father. And he wanted away from the abuse. I agree with you there. I don't know. I think the children represented the innocence that he lost. Yeah. And so it made it easy for him. I think he was very childlike, but I think that kind of proclivity and his strangeness that I think was an end result of the abuse he underwent as a child, made him an easy target. For him to constantly be into the public eye, some of his stranger behaviors, hanging out with kids a lot.
Yeah, that combined with his body dysmorphic disorder and everything related to that. Yeah.
And I want to say real quick, I kind of think, because a lot of these kids that he hung out with tended to be white kids. And of course, there's the whole thing with his skin disorder, and people claiming that he intentionally was trying to make himself look more white.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it wouldn't.
I don't know.
Here's an idea. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some truth to that, in the sense that the people who abused him the most were black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know if that's far-fetched, if that's way out of line. I don't know. It's just an idea. I could be wrong. But he tended to, he had from others who knew him, he had a habit of going ice cold if he felt that you had wronged him, or like there was no natural, like, hey, I didn't really think that I liked what you had to say, or the way that you interacted with me about this or that. Like, if he felt that you had crossed the line, you wouldn't hear about it. You just, all of a sudden, you'd be out. You were on the outside looking in, and it was immediate. And I think that was, sort of obviously a safety precautionary method that he had adopted. I mean, what else do you do? I doubt that normal interactions, human interactions, were something that were I don't think that he was used to behaving normally. I really don't.
No.
I don't know how else to put that. And so, of course, this leads to stories and rumors and whispers and all kinds of explanations as to what this could be about. And then you have these kids, and I want to take a moment real quick, and I want to post what I'm going to be talking about a little bit, and I'm not going to be able to get to everything. God damn it, where is it? Here we go. I'm going to post three links to the videos that I think go over all the mountains of evidence that really exonerate him, or should really remove all doubt that he in any way abused any kids. I don't think it's true. I really don't. Here we go. So those are these all three of these videos are by and a big shout out to this guy. I'm a big fan. He calls himself the Rageaholic, Razor Fist. His first video about all of this was 2 years ago. So this is something it's not a new thing that a new stance he's taken. He's always felt that the evidence stands in support of Michael Jackson. And he's gone in detail over why he believes this in these 3 videos. So the number one thing about the Leaving Neverland documentary is that it's all of it is anecdotal. It's 2 guys and their immediate family telling stories.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's
they have like a few things, like some recordings, some faxes and notes and stuff like that, but none
all
of
those faxes and notes,
they don't show anything. No,
they don't. There's no hard evidence whatsoever. And that's the thing, is as they tell their stories, you have to understand both of these guys, when they were kids, there were 2 cases made against Michael Jackson, one in 93 and another in 2004.
Yeah.
The one in 93 was Jordy Chandler, whose father committed suicide months after Michael Jackson was found dead, which is kind of curious. And there's video or there's audio recording of Chandler, the father, talking to someone, saying that if I go through with this, Mike's going to be, he's going to be devastated. He's never going to sell another record. He doesn't know what he's in for. His life is going to be over if I decide to go through with this. Now, it sounds very much like somebody talking about, and he says, and I quote, "I'm going to get everything I want." It's very curious the way it's worded, especially in the context of when that call took place, which is after it was apparently found out that Jordy was being abused. Nothing was said about, you didn't hear a disgruntled father who was like, "I'm pissed this guy diddled my kid." You hear a guy saying, "I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to..."
Fucking gold digger. Yeah.
Right. Very much about the money. It seemed very clear that it was about the money. One of the, I don't know if anybody remembers, Razor Fist touches on this and he replays some of the footage. There was a video message from Michael Jackson back then to the public talking about how the Santa Monica Police Department made him, they came to him with a warrant, and they made him strip down, and they took pictures of his
everything,
body and genitals, everything, in order to use as evidence against him in this case. Funny enough, that evidence was decided to not. It was decided not to admit it in the case by the prosecution. Now, if you have pictures of a guy that you can have the kid identify it, like, hey, he's got a spot on his dick over here, and you can show here's his dick and there's the spot. Isn't that curious? Like, why would you not admit that? So that seems very curious to me. On top of that, at the time, California law allowed for a civil suit to be simultaneously. You could enter a civil suit at the same time as a criminal case, which, as I understand it, I'm not sure that California allows that anymore. Very few states do currently. And the reason for it is because one will influence the other.
They're so dependent on one another.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfairly so. And it creates a bias.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, there were several raids, like law enforcement, unannounced raids on Jackson's various properties.
Yeah.
On Neverland, he has like a
hideout,
studio apartment or condo in LA somewhere. And they did raids on these places. And now, mind you, the media, from all the media outlets, claimed that there were people, they had firsthand accounts of people who had witnessed rooms full of pedophilic pornographic material, pictures of kids that he took himself, video of him and other kids doing sexual things, all kinds of stories, and not a shred of that from any of these raids has ever been found. It seems really curious to me that there's nothing. You're telling me, like, they claimed that he had in his apartment, in his wing of the house, his bedroom, a closet hidden within a closet, and in that little hidden compartment was all of this porn stuff, this kiddie porn
the maid said that.
Right. Never found it. They found that room. They did find that. They found that compartment or whatever. Never found anything. I think it's there's no evidence, picture, film, or otherwise, that he ever touched Jordy Chandler or anybody else. Now, at the time of the 93 case, both Wade Robson and Jimmy Safechuck testified in defense of Michael Jackson. And then again, as adults,
Wade did as an adult. Jimmy did not.
And Wade volunteered to. Now, there are several discrepancies with their stories in Leaving Neverland. One such example is when Jimmy says that his sexual abuse at the hands of Michael Jackson increased dramatically after a 1989 performance at the Grammys that Jackson did and took Jimmy with him in New York. Problem is, the Grammys in '89 were here in LA. They weren't in New York. And on top of that, the Grammys in '89, Michael Jackson didn't perform at. So, and Joel was talking. Joel and I talked a little bit about how wild these kids' lives were. You know, they were traveling the world, going on.
It sounded
they were going to Hawaii with them and their families, and just meeting celebrities and seeing the world. And at one point, Jimmy Safechuck says that he went with Michael Jackson to the set of Indiana Jones while they were filming it, and met
Harrison Ford.
And Harrison Ford taught Jimmy how to use the bullwhip. Then gave him the bullwhip. The problem with that is the bullwhip that was used in the filming of that movie was donated to and is currently housed in a I forget what exact museum or whatever, but there's like a film museum what's that?
A memorabilia museum.
Yeah, and it's in that museum. Like, you can go and see it there now today. The same thing with the jacket. The Robson claims that Jackson gave him the Thriller jacket.
And it showed him at the end of the documentary
burning a Thriller jacket.
Yeah.
The problem is the actual Thriller jacket, which came with verification, was recently sold in an auction from a guy who had purchased it from Jackson back in the day, like a fan who was a millionaire, and he was selling off a part of his estate, and that was part of it.
These kids really had those things, and like the problems that they've had in their lives. You think they would have fucking sold them off and gotten the shit ton of money from them.
And that's the issue too, is that Wade later on in life, started just before he posted his $1.2 million civil suit against the Jackson estate in 2013, had been going through years of struggling financially, apparently. That's not presented in the film. Oh, and that's another. There's a another example of how this documentarian who made this whole thing kind of really presented only one side of things and edited in order to do so. They reference a trip that Jackson took Jimmy Safechuck and Jimmy Safechuck's family to Hawaii back in the 80s, like late 80s. Mm-hmm. And then on the plane back, there was some recording, like a tape recorder with a mic on it, and there was this mock interview that Jimmy Safechuck does with Michael Jackson, and he asks a question, and the tape still exists, and he asks the question, what was your favorite part of Hawaii? And in the film, you hear Michael Jackson say, what was my favorite part? Being with you. Problem is there's the transcripts from the 2013 civil case that Safechuck entered against the Jackson estate. He entered this tape as evidence. And there's a transcript of the full tape. And his answer, when Jimmy asks him, is right there in black and white. It was entered as a documentation, in a civil case in court, and it shows very clearly that his answer was not being with you. It was being with Jimmy. Being with Jimmy and his family. They made something like they made this whole trip so much better than it would have been, and I can't wait to be with them on another trip again. So that was completely edited.
That's bullshit.
Yeah. And then Wade Robson's civil suit. Now, mind you, Safechuck and Robson both have had issues financially. It sort of sounds like this whole documentary was written by Michael Moore. Could have been. Very easily could have been. So the two of them were having financial issues when they both decided to enter their civil lawsuits, which were thrown out, by the way, in 2013. Completely thrown out. Now, the curious thing is, somebody brought up the question of, well, Robson testified under oath and under penalty of perjury in the 2004 case in support of Jackson, and now his story's changed. Can't that be used against him to bring up criminal charges, like you lied under oath?
Perjury,
right, perjury. And it turns out that the civil case that Robson filed, he filed it just months after the statute of limitations wore out on that. Just months after the statute of limitations wore out. So, I mean, of course, none of this is presented. And that's the problem with...
He didn't make a documentary. He just told a story.
He made an activist film.
Yeah.
It was very... And it's funny. In the 2004 case, there was a law at the time that allowed prosecution to use evidence in previous cases, regardless of how those cases turned out. So they were able to enter evidence from the 1993 case, even though Jackson won that case. It didn't matter. So they took their 3 kids that they were filing against and at the time, and added Jordy Hunt and another kid to the mix. So it was a total of 5 kids. The prosecution brought witnesses, and this is the funny thing, who claims that they witnessed Brett Barnes, which is the name of one of the supposed victims, Macaulay Culkin, and I forget who the third one was. So there were 3 bodyguards and a maid who all claimed that they witnessed firsthand Michael Jackson fucking these kids.
Right.
The defense brought in those kids who said, "No, that didn't happen at all." What were you thinking? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, how can that not be taken as, like, you really think that Michael Jackson has so much power that these kids wouldn't crumble under cross-examination? Really? It just doesn't make sense to me.
The way they present it, or Jimmy and Wade kind of present it, why they came to his defense is they were so enraptured and in love with this man that they were pretty much under total control, seeking his approval, wanting to make him happy. And I mean, that is believable. That can happen.
Yeah. It's just 14 counts, the 2004 case.
Mm-hmm.
14 counts. He wasn't acquitted of just one or half or most. He was acquitted of all of them. Yes, Ethan, you are muted. Would you like to be unmuted? Yes. All right. I love hearing from our audience. Give me a second here.
All right, I got him.
Oh, thank you. You're faster than I am.
All right. Can I be heard now?
Yeah,
yes,
we can hear you.
Yes, you can, sir.
Okay. The whole bullshit about them kids being under Michael Jackson's awe of, oh, he's a superstar, he's my hero, is bullshit. Okay?
Yes,
it's called forensic. It's called forensic interviewing that they do to child victims, and the doctors even did fucking forensic testing on them kids to verify that they had never been sexually assaulted. This bullshit documentary is just a fucking cash grab to be a part of the Me Too movement. And what bothers me, because I do honestly believe that Michael Jackson victimized children, just not sexually. Okay, Michael Jackson, I believe, was a pedophile. He just wasn't a sexual one. He took pictures of those kids, and that is what I believe he did. Because all of his alleged... I'm sorry, what?
What makes you believe that? You think he took sexual...
The stories the kids told. The stories the kids told, including Macaulay Culkin and Corey Feldman. They themselves admitted that Michael Jackson
have never said.
No, they have done interviews where they acknowledge that Michael Jackson himself had taken pictures of them that they didn't feel comfortable of. Now, then that could range from any fucking wide variety of things. Okay, most people don't understand that being a pedophile is not just you violated a child's body. No, it is violating a child. Period. There are people locked up for taking simply pictures because that's how they get off, is they get to look back at the innocence that they had in their hands, and they get off on that shit. There are people that get off on watching other kids touch other kids. There's a wide range of pedophiles out there, and that's the problem. Everybody hears the term pedophile, and they automatically think that some sycophant penetrated a child. That is not always the case. Yes, I believe Michael Jackson did, in fact, take very inappropriate pictures of the children that would go and stay at Neverland Ranch. I do not believe he ever sexually violated them.
Okay. I've never heard anything from Corey Feldman. In fact, everything that I looked up on about Corey Feldman, he has, from the start, and this is... Mind you, we're talking about Corey Feldman. This is a guy who says that he was surrounded by pedophiles his entire career, his entire as a child star, and was abused by multiple people in the business, in the industry. And from day one to today, everything I've seen him say has been in defense of Michael Jackson. I've never once heard him talk about taking any pictures or anything like that. This is a guy who said, I mean, the guy who's like the whole fucking industry, all of Hollywood's a bunch of pedophiles.
That is what I'm
always said Michael Jackson never was. and that to me is very telling. But if you have links, I would very much like. I'm very interested to see.
No, that's what I'm saying is no. Corey Feldman and Macaulay Culkin never said Michael Jackson molested them. Okay, them two right there have always been a Michael Jackson defender, but they have said that he took pictures of them that they didn't feel comfortable with. Now, again, that could range from.
Say that. Do you have links to them saying that? I'm not disputing that. I've never heard them say that, and I'd love to listen to them say that firsthand. Do you have links to any of that?
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about with links. I'm not a technological person here.
I'm assuming you're talking about like interviews, like filmed interviews where they said this.
Okay, and that's the problem with that. Corey Feldman specifically was the fucking talk show with the broads that never shut the fuck up and always have an ignorant opinion. That one. When Barbara Walters was still a part of that show, they had him on there, and all this come out about Corey Feldman come out right after the Harvey Weinstein. When Harvey Weinstein come out, Corey Feldman did another interview, and he says if you go back and watch the interview where he was on The View, you can literally watch where Barbara Walters says, Corey, this is people's lives you're ruining, when he said there are pedophiles and predators in Hollywood all over, and I will give you names. Barbara Walters shut them down immediately. I saw that. Right. So from there, if you find that, you literally will have to go down a fucking rabbit hole. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I used to work with him. He's the one that fucking showed me all this shit. Because like I said, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with links. I know that you're talking about links from one interview to another interview. But
when I say link, I mean like a internet link. Like I linked.
Yeah, I know what an internet. I know what you're talking about. I don't know how all that shit works. I just know that a guy I worked with, literally, because we were watching that shit on TV, he literally was able to pull up like 5 or 6 different things showing that Corey Feldman has been saying that shit about Harvey Weinstein and his company, people of his company, not specifically that company.
I don't dispute that at all. Yes. Corey,
and there's that. But one of the things Corey Feldman said was they tried to attack Michael Jackson and make him into this great big old villainous thing of victimizing children and all this other shit. And he was defending Michael Jackson. But one of the things he said in one of the interviews was the closest anything Michael ever came was taking pictures of all the kids when they were at Neverland Ranch for the weekends. And there were some of the pictures when they were out there on the, what the fuck did he call that? The carnival thing where all of his fucking rides were at Neverland Ranch. There's a specific title he gave that. But he said that when all the kids were out there and everything else, and it was a whole group of them out in public where people could fucking see, but Michael was taking pictures of it. And he said there was just a few of the pictures that him and Macaulay Culkin didn't feel comfortable in. Now, I don't know what the fuck that means because he didn't get to expand on that in that interview. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That right there tells me that Michael Jackson...
I've never heard.
Adam LaHood says that he has seen the two, the same interview where he claims that. So
and that's what I'm saying is, so people get this thought in their head and this image in their head of a pedophile as someone that violates a child's body. That's not the case. There are pedophiles out there that will literally sit at a park, just sit at a fucking park, take pictures of strange children playing. And that's what gets them off is because they get excited by the innocence playing at the park, and that's what gets them off. There are sickos out there all over and that's what I'm trying to say is Michael Jackson could literally just fall into that thing where the pictures he took of these kids riding the carnival ride, playing with the animals, that was his shtick. That I believe Michael Jackson fits into because he got to stare at those kids, and it gave him what was stolen from him by his father. That's what I'm saying. Okay, there's a few Michael Jackson songs I'm a huge fan of. I used to be a huge Michael Jackson fan, but when all this shit came out, I do not condone pedophilia one fucking bit iota. And after learning all of the different fucking subcategories of pedophilia, no, Michael Jackson, was he a pedophile? I don't know, but he fucking fits the profile of one, and that's a no-no.
He does fit the profile.
I don't agree, though. I'm sorry.
He fits the profile. I don't think he's a pedophile. Actually,
I don't think he's a pedophile, even under the sense of what Heathen is saying, because here's the problem with that. Where are these pictures? Where is a single picture that, we can point to and say, here's one of those pictures that he took that the kids are saying that was inappropriate? What does that mean? Can we see? Where is any evidence?
Okay, no, not inappropriate. No. They're not saying they were inappropriate. They said they were uncomfortable.
Evidence. There's no video evidence. There's absolutely
you're not listening.
nothing.
No, you're not. Yes, there is evidence everywhere, but you're not listening to the words being used.
He's
I did
saying
not
the
say
pictures might not be ones that you would consider bad, actually, but they were uncomfortable with them.
Okay, but that's quite the leap. If it's pictures that you and I would not consider inappropriate, what evidence is there that Michael Jackson was using it in his imagination inappropriately?
None.
Other than
none.
There's no evidence.
No. And that's the rub. That's the big rub there. There is no evidence whatsoever, other than he fits the profile of an individual that got his rocks off on pictures of just children, not inappropriate pictures of children, just pictures of children. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm saying. There's no evidence whatsoever. None. Okay, let's be clear on that.
And that's not enough to go on.
It is.
That's a problem for me.
Saying though that it is for him, it's enough to make him uncomfortable.
Okay, and maybe that's the case. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that the possibility maybe Michael Jackson liked to take pictures of kids that were just normal, just him hanging out with kids. And maybe he would jerk off to those. And maybe that's the kind of pedophile he was. Maybe isn't enough for me to accuse him and consider him and condemn him and then excuse the over 2 decades worth of demonization and witch hunting that this man has had to endure and continues to endure after his death.
After his death.
Like this you had FBI investigations, you had law enforcement investigations, you had raids on his properties, and not a shred of evidence. Nothing has come forth. And the people who were accusing him, you've got three kids who these people said we were eyewitnesses to them being abused. All 3 of those kids said no. The kid who, Jordy Hunt, fucking emancipated from his parents the minute that trial fucking ended, which again, everybody points to the payoff.
That's what I'm saying. That's the big rub there is the maybes. Okay, and people can go off of the maybes. Should they? No, it should be a fucking against the law. And if you don't have solid, tangible proof, you should have to keep your fucking mouth shut about it because you waited 30 fucking years after the fact. I agree with you. They need to keep this. If it did happen, let's just go there. If it did happen, you motherfuckers waited this long and the man's been dead how long? Shut the fuck up, sit down, eat your goddamn cherry pie, and just be happy you're in America still. Fuck off. And that's what he did, okay? That's where I'm at with this. They needed to come forward at that fucking time and put that motherfucker behind bars to prevent other victims from being created. Period.
I'd love to see your cherry pony girl. Sorry, I can't ignore when she says something. So anyway.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Is the maybes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The maybes are what everybody's getting at. Okay, going off of maybe he took pictures of these kids. That's not a maybe. He took pictures of those kids. That's a fact. There are billions of pictures that they're innocent pictures, in my opinion. Yeah. They're just of kids at his fucking ranch riding these carnival rides, petting these fucking animals. There's nothing inappropriate about them whatsoever. They're pictures that you see in the newspapers, the pictures you see on the news. They're pictures that parents themselves fucking post because, oh, what a great day we had at the zoo. What a great day we had at the aquarium. They're innocent pictures, but now people are like, well, maybe he took them because he gets his rocks off. Okay, maybe he took them because of this. Well, maybe he took them so he could sell them to fucking Russia to help them get their uranium fucking deal from Hillary Clinton. Who fucking cares? They're goddamn.
Maybe he was taking them as part of a U.S. Intelligence project to just create an intergalactic trade alliance with the Greys. It's preposterous.
It's
to make all these fucking. What if the tank came in and blew us all up? Like, we can make all kinds of what ifs. It's stupid.
That's what I'm saying.
It's absolutely.
Everybody goes off of these maybes, and nobody's doing the fucking research to validate these stories anymore. Case in point, Brett Kavanaugh. Was he a drunk frat boy that maybe slapped a girl's ass? Abso-fucking-lutely. But did he rape that broad? Apparently fucking not, because we haven't heard shit since he got confirmed to the Supreme Court. It's
the same.
Anymore, it's not about innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until proven innocent. Congratulations. I'm going to say you're a crackhead. Now all of a sudden everybody says you're a fucking crackhead, and you've never touched crack once in your life. That's bullshit. I should have to have evidence to prove that you're a fucking crackhead before I get to publicly start spouting off the mouth that you're a fucking crackhead. And that's not the case anymore. Anymore, it's guilty until proven innocent, and it's not on the state's fucking behalf or whatever the fuck that word is I'm trying to say. It's not their duty to fucking prove you're guilty. Now all they got to do is just say, hey, this guy over here is suspected of this, and everybody else is like, oh, he's fucking guilty. That's bullshit. It literally says innocent until proven guilty, and everybody in the law enforcement is ignoring it. And then society's like, yep, nope, it's true. But we hate the fucking cops because they're lying pieces of shit. But they said this guy over here, he's a bad guy, so we believe him. It's fucking crap. That's all I'm trying to get out.
Right. Ethan, I appreciate your statements on that. Adam LaHood, I don't know if you want to chime in here and maybe say a few words before we close off this particular topic. Robyn, I hope that you're prepared, because I plan on bringing you on in just a few minutes to start.
Apparently, Adam has nothing to add to this particular topic.
Oh, and by the way, Captain Marvel was an awesome movie.
Oh, okay. All right. To each their own.
Yeah, I thought Brie Larson did an awesome fucking job. It's a goddamn comic book, people. Enough said.
I don't care that it's the source material is a comic book. I think that I don't know. I don't think she's all that. I've seen better. And I think Alita was much better. I think it's Allison, thank you for posting that link. I'm going to look into that later. That says Corey Feldman says he can no longer defend Michael Jackson. I'm curious to know when that was, what the date on that is. Oh, it looks like 3/7. So that was recent. And that's suspect to me. It seems to me like the amount of that whole the whole documentary is based on anecdotal evidence, and it's based on feelings. It's listening to guys talk about how they were touched when they were kids, and it's uncomfortable. It's unnerving, and it certainly pulls on your heartstrings. And I think that that's evident in how everybody's responding to it, because the news media is blowing it way out of it. Jacko's done. Yeah. He's fucking done. It's clear as day now. Everybody seems to be really convinced by these stories.
I mean, it was done very well.
He pulls a ring out at some point. Like, it could have been a ring he got out of a fucking Cracker Jack box. By the way, this is a ring that OJ gave me, or that Michael Jackson gave me when we got married. What the fuck are you talking about? And then the circumference of that ring, either he had huge kids as a child, or huge hands as a kid, or he has really small hands as a fucking.
No one can hear me.
Yeah, it's just fucking ridiculous. I don't believe them. I think there's no evidence that proves that he did the things that he said that they did. It was a cock ring. I'm sad that you won't chime in, even briefly, Adam. I don't know why you won't, but we'd love to hear your legal expertise on this particular matter. I'm on my phone. All right. Well, so am I. Fucker. I'll read that thing about Corey Feldman later. It seems highly. What I was going to say is that it seems to me like he's watching everybody go, well, this is bullshit, and being convinced and going, well, fuck, I don't want to be on the wrong side of things. No, I'm not defending him anymore. Like the deluge of people that are now apparently convinced that MJ is this fucking pedophilic monster, it seems to me like he just doesn't want to. We talked about movies and about Michael Jackson. Yes, we did, Starbomba. And now, Robyn, are you with us? I would like to, if you're ready and available, I'd like to go ahead and end this discussion about MJ and get on to our next big topic. I'm going to make sure
server muted now.
Okay, good.
Oh, we just heard a cough.
There
That's
we go.
me. How's my earphones working?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Robyn, how are you?
I'm okay. I just wanted to I wanted to do the rendition of Eric Cartman at Mr. Jefferson's Wonderland.
Oh.
Mr. Jefferson. I like that. What? Anyway, hey folks, how's it going?
I don't know that. I don't know that reference. I haven't seen very many episodes of South Park. I used to watch it. I watched it a lot when it first came out, but I haven't. Dude, it's been seasons since I watched that show.
I think that came out in like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't remember.
Some good shit, Nancy. It's a really hard act to follow. I mean, we bring up Michael Jackson, and then I start talking about what happened to the transgender subject, if you will.
Well, yeah. Let's preface. Let's make sure that everybody understands what we're actually talking about. Okay. So, Robyn, you wanted to come on and talk about gender politics and the politicization of the transgender cause and community, and the follies.
It's a bit of definitely. Right? It's turned into a bit of like a shell game. A lot of times when you hear people discuss transgender issues, they're talking about a binary thing where you're defending people who are suffering because they're in the wrong body. You'll hear statements like that, but that is predicated on a gender binary. So it's kind of ironic that when people are advocating for transgender rights, they'll quietly, you know that meme with the one guy looks over his shoulder, it's like a little puppet, and then he just kind of keeps looking and he moves on. You will benefit if I stay quiet about the other part of what their agenda is.
I'm not sure what you're referencing. Are you talking about how people feel like this is a touchy subject and they feel like they don't? So most
they're
people
just kind of move along. Sometimes, other times, just they're keeping to themselves because they know better than to show the rest of their hand. Because a non-binary apoplectic activist would come at you like an agent of change, and perhaps they've just refined the self-control to not unleash on you about talking about being trapped in one body, wanting to only be in the other body, because gender, after all, is a social construct according to this newfangled perspective that's big
right.
amongst
trendy
progressives. So,
and that's kind of what we want to talk about. So
Exactly.
I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we get on to any of that, let's first talk about now you wanting to talk about gender politics and the transgender politicization and all of that. This is personal for you.
Yeah, I had front row seats.
Right, you yourself are transgender.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So that makes all the difference in the world, in my opinion, when talking about this. Because now I don't know about the rest of you, but I only found out. Robyn and I were talking last night, and I had no idea. You began to talk about all of this, and I was very confused at first. I was like, "Where's all of this coming from? Why is this such a topic that seems so, that you seem so vested in. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, oh shit, are you trans? I've known you for a good bit. So for a while now.
Late November, I guess.
Yeah. And I had no clue up to this point. You blew my mind with that. I thought that was so funny.
Much too sassy, I guess.
So that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit give us a little bit of your background.
Holy shit. I am the youngest of 7. Come from a sizable family from the East Coast. I was born a long time ago. I don't know if I want to divulge my age.
You don't have to.
Yeah, well, maybe I should, because it kind of, I don't know. I was born.
Totally up to you.
I was born in 1965. Okay, I mean, very, very long time ago. So by the time it was the early 90s, I was still kind of a club kid, and
right.
I found myself in a unique situation that sort of enabled that. I could play shows at night, still have a young kid and a wife and all that. But then I guess she decided she didn't like me too much anymore. And that kind of threw me in a bit of a whirlwind. And at the time I ran into someone. What?
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand you clearly. You said that you had a family, like a wife and a child?
Yeah, a wife and a child.
Oh,
that's
wow.
Right. Yeah. My son's going to be 30.
No kidding.
Yeah, this year.
When did you discover, like, can you take us down your road of discovery, I suppose, as to when you finally decided that you were transgender, that was something you wanted to do, was to transition from male?
I'm a little skeptical of that, actually.
What do you mean by that?
I think a lot of folks are using a one size fits most acceptable or one size fits all sort of concept of why it is people enter transition. From really being in the fray, there's more than one perspective and more say original desire. Why it is that they transition, why it is that they get involved in that.
Can you give us an example? Can you maybe throw a few different ones our way so that we understand what you're talking about?
Well, some folks are doing it because they're into bod mod. They really are, and in fact, in current year, they're able to get away with body modification, claiming that they are non-binary.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that there's a portion of the trans community that
was interested in bod mod, and what they would
they just led
claim
down
that they
road.
wanted to, they wanted breasts, they wanted fat distribution to be a very specific way, but that's about as far as it went. And they thought of it as something that they could wear or enhance what they did in the way they presented themselves. And there was kids in the goth clubs doing this kind of shit. Okay. And I kind of saw that there was demonstrable effects of taking these hormones. So I took them too. Okay. That's my step 1. Step 2, it took its effect, and then you start maybe wanting more. Okay. So where my story begins is I was essentially illegally experimenting with hormones, and I got a taste for taking it further. By around 2002, I wasn't planning on having bottom surgery, but I certainly was thinking about having a facial feminization.
You weren't. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understood what you just said. You weren't thinking of having bottom surgery, but you were thinking of doing a facial feminization.
Yeah, where they bust a little bit of your jaw and they relax the way your scalp comes over your nose and all that. They'll reshape your bones and pull your face over it and you deal with the numbness for about 4 years.
There's
tell no one about it.
There's a YouTuber who's undergone all that. She's she's known for. I'm trying to remember her name.
Are you talking about Blair White?
Yes, Blair White. Thank you. She underwent
facial,
hormone treatments, and then underwent facial surgeries and things like that. So I know what you're talking about. Now, my curiosity, I feel like the question needs to be asked: what took you from being? Were you? I guess were you born and raised a straight male? Were you confused in your during puberty or anything like that? You talk about having a wife and a child, so it sounds to me like you were a straight male living a straight man's life for at least 20 years or so, right? Is that correct?
Right. Well, yeah. So I've had both girlfriends and boyfriends.
How does somebody go from having being raised straight male, ending up with a family, and now you're transgender? How did that happen for you?
My quick and dirty answer is that having a really willful personality and character, I think, because when I was in high school, I still had feelings for everyone. I'm into people. I'm not into one gender. In other words, you're gonna say, are you bisexual? I would say, yeah, absolutely. But I kind of suspect everyone's bisexual. It's just that's even politicized.
Well, so, I mean, if you follow Kinsey says everybody falls on a scale. Nobody's 100% straight or 100% gay. You're just a percentage of.
And still, there's two genders. Yes.
To that.
Okay. So both those things could be true. Yeah, but there's two genders, and Kinsey was onto something. Back in ancient history, before we were so preoccupied with, Judeo-Christian cultural constraints, or for that matter, Judaic constraints, there were societies, at least that lead into our Western traditions, from like Greece and Alexandria, let's say, and these folks, the powerful men, they took their best friend from high school, if you will, and their wife into their futures, and they didn't have the problems because the societal constraints weren't there. It wasn't politicized. If that wasn't your thing, you'd probably just tell your best friend to find his own house. Let's chill, and you just move along. There was perhaps less of a stigma,
less judgment, right?
Yeah.
The societal norms were obviously different, and I guess one glaring example of that would be the ancient Greeks with their pederasty. It was a common practice, and it wasn't looked as wrong or in any way immoral or unethical to woo and court and date young boys, 10, 11, 12. In fact, that was seen as for pleasure, and wives were housekeepers. That was something it was practical. It was pragmatic to have a woman to carry on your line, to keep house. But as far as for entertainment sexually, you didn't really go to your wife for that. And obviously, given our given our as you say, Christian Judeo backgrounds and given our societal standards today, obviously we disagree, and we have changed from that.
Well, there was benefits to Judeo-Christian mindsets that kind of prepared us to do things like concede when someone else is more correct, and being humble and stuff like that. Actually, kind of fed into our modern life. In other words, we were more predisposed to concede when wrong if you at least had some sort of moral basis in your thinking prior to further should I call them, decisions closer to our current century, if you will. There's a current year example of what I was talking about socially that was, previous to Abrahamic influence, Abrahamic religious influence, and that would be the Hebrew. I think that they're in the rainforest, somewhere in South America. Can't remember which country. Kind of don't have enough fucks to look that up right now. But the Hebrew, they still do this. They have, the boyhood friend, and that becomes somewhat of a lover,
right?
Or not. And they have falling outs too, bro. And in fact, that gets so bad that they hunt each other's heads. The story goes on because it's not all pleasantry, and not this one case scenario that a lot of folks they're attracted to it. How should I say, they find that that's the squeaky wheel that they want to focus on and explain a lot about. Okay, whereas there were other case scenarios, including ones that a guy grows up to be an adult and he doesn't want to partake in these social standards. Maybe it was a little punk rock just to have your wife love her hardcore. Okay. And that was also going on back then and in current year. I'm saying that a lot of times people take this single narrative, like the American Indians. They were all crying Italians on horses, cartoons. They were crying about the trash. No, fuck you, dude. They were warring with each other,
right?
Hang the kids from nipples, and they were pretty brutal compared to a Columbia University brat who gets to say that we need to exterminate all the white people off the earth. And you might applaud or not. Yeah, so it I think that even before social media came so prominent in dumbing down everyone's conversation, there's this tendency to overgeneralize. Broad, simple stories that overlay over lives from centuries ago. Really, it kind of doesn't cover it. You know what I mean? And I gotta recommend that a lot of times these are oversimplifications.
Lack of nuance.
Yeah, they lack so much nuance that it's just like, God, you gotta be skeptical.
Well, and I think that's true. I think a lot of people fall prey to the need to have it kind of fed to them in a simple and palatable, easy to understand kind of way. I think it's telling that Twitter is so popular and is, I think they increased it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's the good guys and they're the established.
You have 140 characters to communicate with, and that seems to be, people want it quick, fast, and in a hurry, and they want it short and sweet. They don't want to take the time to really explore and understand and get into the nuance often. But let's talk about how that pertains to the transgender community. Now, we were talking about how there's different reasons for becoming transgender, and one of the ways that you had referenced was body modification can lead you down that road, which is very interesting. I never thought of that. What are some of the other ways that you've experienced or seen? What are other examples of how you can end up as transgender? Because I think the majority of us, I know for me at least, if you are transgender, then obviously you have gender dysmorphia, because what other reason could there be for you to become transgender? If you don't feel like you're the opposite sex on the inside, why would you want to become that?
My response is, why is that so necessary? Why don't you just...
I think the reason that it's difficult...
Follow the yellow brick road, okay? I mean, if you're on these hormones for a dozen years, it would make sense. If you were on...
I'm sorry, say that again. If I took the hormones, I'd understand.
But why start the hormones in the first place, I think is what he's trying to ask.
Yes.
Okay. Step one.
We're not talking about just wearing a costume. like we talked about earlier last night, that there's different categories, and one of them are CDs, which is
cross-dressers. Yeah, right. These are the old.
I get that
under Harry Benjamin.
Talk on the wild side, guys
right.
who want to, buck the like we were talking about societal norms, dressing men like women and women like men. Okay, I can wrap my head around that. But a drastic change, like altering your body hormonally, surgically, seems so. That's heavy. We're talking permanent changes.
Yeah, we are. That's right.
It's not a piece of clothing you can just put on and take off. So
that's right. Yeah.
For me, the difficult thing to wrap my head around is why would anyone make such a drastic decision as to change themselves so permanently if it wasn't because they felt like they were meant to be that gender. So, and I understand that you're saying there are other reasons, and that's, I guess, what I'm asking is what are those other reasons?
Those are the reasons. I've come this far, and I can do the rest. That was where I was coming from. It was working. Okay.
So
it really was.
I guess we'll talk about you directly then, your personal experience, like what Adam had asked. Why start the hormones in the first place? So what got you into taking these hormones to begin with?
Yeah, I saw someone else go from being, a regular club kid, promoting shows or whatever, and then he started to cross-dress, and then he enhanced his presentation by taking hormones. He grew breasts, and I wanted that.
You wanted to
grow breasts.
Were you already cross-dressing at that point?
No, actually, I wasn't.
So that changed, the fact that he went above and beyond, appealed to you somehow. Like, this guy's not just wearing women's clothing, he's actually changing his body.
That's right.
What appealed to you about that? Like, why did that appeal to you?
Because it's from the inside out. It seemed more authentic.
If you'll give me just a brief moment, I don't mean to interrupt. I know we're having a really good conversation, but I can't miss an opportunity to rip on Allison. Allison, you're asking why nobody's talking about Robynne's accent, and we all make fun of you for yours. I love your accent too, but the reason I'm not making fun of Robynne is because Robynne's a nice and decent person, and you're an asshole, and so it's fun to fuck with you. And that's why we make fun of your act. Because you're a dick. You're a dick, and Robynne's not. And that's the difference. All right. So Robynne, what I mean, that just seems so wild to me to see somebody who I guess was it just like, wow, they're so different. They're doing this thing that's so wild, and you wanted to be wild too?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's
I mean, just to put it in perspective, like, I'm a very like straight edge kind of person, and the thought of like doing something permanent to my own body, even like a tattoo, is like crazy for me to think about. Is it like,
can't recommend it.
Is it like what you're talking about, kind of similar to that, in that like some people are just more okay with that than others?
Well, I always found going somewhere and getting a picture attached to your skin as being a little underwhelming. I guess I'm just I might be more of a dick than the person with the accent in that regard, because I've always said that anyone can go to a tattoo parlor, when they're drunk with the sailor friends or whatever, screwed, tattooed, and they even got glued, if I'm not pronouncing that correct. It's just, I don't know. I saw it as going like, one step beyond, and so I
so it's like a being unique kind of thing. Like you desire that. I
desired that, and at the time, I'll tell you this: my family life was falling apart. At the time, wife was getting into drugs. Her mom was very aggressive. She worked for the state. She wanted to keep the son at the house. So there was a lot of other sort of stresses.
So do you
at
feel
the time?
Do you feel like part of the appeal then may have been the escapism of it?
It may have been, but I stayed in that escape mode. I really did.
So it started with taking hormone. Did you talk to the person who grew breasts and ask them, hey, what'd you do to make these changes? And they told you about the hormones?
Not only that, but so if they gave me some to make the trip, I'd get them some of the supplies, and I'd pick it up as well. I'd travel across the southern California border into Mexico, and there was several parts of Tijuana where they had a lot of these pharmacies, and so
right. It's long been the case that you can
pick up about
drugs.
30 boxes. Yeah, they were about $6 a piece back in 1997 for a month's worth of Kremlin pack.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started hormone treatments back in the late 90s.
And I was an illegal some degree, wasn't that right?
I'm sorry, you cut out there. What was that? It was illegal?
It's like I'm an illegal. Yeah, I was sneaking drugs back into the country, bro.
Oh. Right, I get you.
Yeah.
Did that make it more exciting for you?
Somewhat.
Okay. So, would you say then that part of your reasoning here was sort of chasing the thrill?
I don't know, because as soon as I had it's like you've achieved a body type that you didn't think was possible. Okay, so that's so where you're a little further into. When I'm a little further into the territory, I'm more than just astonished at some of the changes, physiologically.
Right.
And,
I can imagine.
And of course emotionally as well. It seemed.
Did it have an effect on you emotionally?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, you become more emotional.
Was that something that were you not a very emotional person before?
I think I was more angry. Yeah.
And did this temper that?
Not necessarily. Just it actually put me into another kind of challenging ordeal to try to.
What do you mean?
Well, because now you're more emotional, and you still have some of the rest of your character that's under this influence, if you will, and you must contain that because you need to have a job, and you need to interact with real people, and so for the first half decade, I was hiding some of those changes, wearing baggy clothes, taping down my stuff. And because it was growing forward, you don't want to be too obvious. And I worked in laboratories, so it really didn't. I was working behind the scenes.
Probably right. The environment that you worked in made it easier for you to do.
Yeah, I wasn't customer service, Disney World or anything, so it wasn't a problem. And I tell you, back. You know what Disney is like right now, but fucking back then, counter jobs wouldn't have anything to do with this, or
right.
having too many earrings. They would just say, "Hey, if you want the job, you got to take this stuff off."
Was there any hesitation on your part in regards to how you would be received by the public at large? Did that concern you at all? Like, maybe I won't be accepted for doing this change?
That's the difference between and the activists. See, I'm not trying to leverage as much of my reaction to my world around me to push all of the urgency buttons on everyone else, because I completely loathe that approach. It's up to me to sell that I am changing, and it's up for me to be the best representation of someone who's having or enduring that or is in transition, let's say. So when everyone began to know at work, I began to put in the effort to not only be presentable, not to like overdo it, and also not to demand anything from anyone. If folks slipped up, I would say, I wouldn't say it. And if anyone asked if I was feeling sensitive, I was going, why don't you give them a break? Being patient gives folks room to grow. Jump in their shit, I think it's kind of fucked up. And that was my attitude, which is why, what I'm seeing nowadays, really, I mean, it irks. That you show up, you demand everyone to call you Z and shit. Yeah, what you see nowadays. Yeah.
As your approach, I would say that what we see today, as the approach by the trans community at large and those who support the trans community, seems to be the opposite of what you're talking about, where it's very demanding, it's very aggressive, and it's very the opposite of everything you just described is your approach. So that's very curious to me. What's your take on that? As to why do you have such a different approach? Why does that stand out? And why isn't it something that they've adopted as well?
I think it's because I really am, there is no such thing as a free lunch, conservative libertarian. I really am one of those kinds of people. So when I want to accomplish what I want to accomplish, I'm not just selling the one unit that I want people to buy off of me. I want it to be genuine. And I put my whole self into it. I really believe that if I wanted to accomplish something, I would be offended by being placated if everyone was just playing along. And you could tell, because if people read you, you can tell. They begin to interact with you much differently. Okay? So for those of us who pass, okay, then we have this unique experience where if someone reads you or clocks you, they begin to perceive you differently. They begin to interact with you like you're a fella. In addition to that, they begin to perhaps illustrate that they are contending with an imposter to whatever degree, right? Whereas, if someone perceives you as a woman, what they do is, I guess there's those practical constraints of gynocentrism, where they will accommodate you to a certain degree. They also expect certain things. Well, there's things that you probably there's places you can't go if you still want them to perceive you as female, put it that way. Okay, because there's a lot to consider, and you actually have to orientate yourself, rehearse that, make sure your voice sounds good, and go for it. And after many years,
from your perspective, what you're saying is you have to do a lot to. There's a lot of effort that you took personally to play the part, to become the thing that you were actually transitioning into.
Yeah, because before that, I looked like fucking
gender, to become a woman.
Right, but before that, I looked like fucking Rick Moranis meets Stephen Colbert. So when I'm in a transgender, say circa 2007, and I'm seeing folks who they're pissed off at the people who passed, and they had this attitude, you know. And it was like, well, being a pissed off guy in drag only makes it worse for everyone else. And these people would they'd complain that, you know, they go to the drive-through and they ask for their taco and they're frying the Diet Coke, and they say, "Okay, sir, that would be $5.95," and then they drive around. How dare you gender me as a guy and shit and junk and stuff? And like, we don't have a camera, bro. You know, I heard your voice. And
Robyn, I don't mean
Papa
to.
do rum rum.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to say that there's it seems, I don't know if it's the distance that from your mic or whatever, but there are times where your voice drops and it becomes muffled and difficult to hear.
Sorry. All right.
No, that's okay.
Thanks for the heads up. Try to hold still. I'm pretty sure
what you're doing right now is so crystal clear. I really appreciate that. I just want to make sure that that we can all hear and understand you.
All right.
Because what you're talking about is
good catch.
At least for me, I'm extremely interested in what you're saying. So now I want to kind of walk through this a bit. So you're a club kid, you're having trouble with the family, with your life at large. You see this person, you decide, I want that. This kind of crossover, this change. And so you decide to start that process and you take to the hormones. I'm assuming that the changes that you underwent with the hormone, with the pills, was something positive for you. You liked it.
I liked it. Yeah.
I guess what was it about it that you liked? Because I can't imagine taking pills. I mean, that to me, that's scary. To make a decision like that, to see somebody. I mean, I've seen people who make changes. Like I think it's pretty wild and crazy to see the body modifications that some people do with their, they're putting those plastics under their skin and causing bumps and horns and all kinds of weird stuff. I think that's pretty cool, but I don't think that's something I would do for two major reasons. Like, number one, that seems pretty drastic of a change to I don't know what you call them, Steva. All right, I'm sure I'm not getting the name right, but you're welcome to interject and correct me on whatever you call those things. But anyway, like, that's a drastic change. It's not something I would do. Number one, because I don't think I'm ready for that kind of drastic change. And that's something you can reverse even. And on top of that, like that has consequences on a social level, sort of how others are going to perceive you, your ability to interact, or it might affect how you get if you can get a job, or there's all kinds of things that, for me, something like that would cause me to, it makes me pause and it makes me go, I don't think that's for me. But you jumped into that, you liked what you did, and you went further with it.
Yeah. So at the time I was in a goth band, Necrodolly. I don't know. Should I send a link? So
I'd love to hear it.
All right. I don't know. It was the group I was in. I didn't give you any links or anything. I guess I didn't have anything prepared about my time through the 90s or anything, but
no, I fully appreciate that. Certainly, if you want to post them after, we can do that too.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
When you have the time, post them, and you're welcome to do the same in the group as well. We have a lot of musicians and a lot of music fans, so we're always. Oh yeah, absolutely. I used to be in bands too, so I'm always eager to hear what fellow musicians have created on their own. Allison has a question. I would love to. Do you want me to unmute you, Allison, or do you want to ask that question via type? And she's typing. Several people are typing, it says. She just typed it out. She did? Does the Metal ever roster, have you ever seen any? That'd be a nice... Oh, were you asking the question of Sativa? I thought you had a question for Robynne. Okay, my mistake.
Does Metal ever rest?
I don't think it does. I think that's the whole point. They use specific metals that don't when it comes to piercings. That would be counterproductive to the whole experience, I imagine. Like, here's some pop metal. You put that in your body. That seems like a good idea. Biocompatible. Yes, that's a good word. I like that word. Your experience when you started to transition.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some good questions.
Yeah.
Questions for you. Number one, you ever regret the choice you made to start treatment?
Everyone does.
Really?
Yes. We all have regrets. I have mine.
Can
do.
You elaborate on that?
Well, I'd have to say, I think there is a degree of regret and a reason to be regretful in one way, and that's that. I think once you're post-op, okay,
Mm-hmm.
although people will try, they will really try their damnedest to make it work. They grow tired of fucking plastic surgery. Understand me? They do. At least the last two people I've been with, they grew tired of doing that. I think it began to not work for them, and they found a reason to move on. And that might have that may explain why some people who are kind of confronted by that idea, they'll not be able to connect with someone else the way they expected to. That would intensify suicidal modality for some. I'm not plagued by that myself.
Why do you think that is? That you're not plagued? Are you doing something differently, or is it just how you perceive things differently, or?
It's a good question. I'm not prepared to answer that.
That's fair. It's all right.
I think I loathe suicide. I just hate it.
I agree with you on that. I do. I mean, I have my own, as everybody does. There's all kinds of reasons that people can struggle with life, financially, socially, personally. There's all different facets of issues.
Yeah.
And I don't, for myself or for anyone else, I find it difficult to excuse or understand how anyone can come to the conclusion that ending your life is a solution to those problems. I just don't.
Yeah, me too. I'm more resentful of people that did commit suicide that I do know than that they did that than I ever had a feeling like that. I mean, everyone gets frustrated. They get they feel like the world's turned upside down. I don't think it's just not in lucky me.
It is right? Well, honestly, actually, yeah. I mean, I think that's a better perspective, and it's good that you're not subjected to that kind of emotional and mental stress.
Yeah, but it's something else.
It seems to plague the trans community. I mean, we're a 40% suicide rate is that's insane. It's pretty crazy, and the fact that doesn't change or it doesn't decrease really at all after the fact, after transition has taken place, is really concerning. You know, there's an issue here that's causing these people in this community, and they're in that community for apparently a multitude of reasons. There's something that's causing them to feel the need to take their own lives. That's increasing the likelihood that they will. And the fact that is happening, it should, for anybody who has any sort of sense of what am I looking for? Love for your fellow man. You know what I mean? Like, these are people too. Ultimately,
yeah. And
empathy.
I think that this is appalling, and I think it's concerning, and it's heart-wrenching. It really is.
All the more reason not just be like in false positive mode and encourage everyone and their dog to fucking do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Which we'll get into that too. I definitely want to, but I want to make sure I get McIntyre's other questions read
Absolutely.
out.
Go ahead.
His second question here is, would you recommend a minimum age to start treatment?
Oh, the kids on puberty blockers thing. I didn't have to have puberty blockers.
Well, you started after you were in your, late 20s?
Right. Yeah. It's in my 20s.
What's your take on these kids who are starting on puberty blockers? You know, they're beginning their transition path or process, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old.
It's worrisome, and I'm uncertain. I am uncertain that these are safe hormones and puberty blockers, which is basically they're just repurposed pharmaceuticals for other purposes being used as puberty blockers. Let's just go fast forward. We don't know what the long-term effects are of using those, and I think it's just political correctness run amok.
I agree. I would agree with you.
That's all I have to say. And I understand the rubric behind, because when you mature with male secondary sexual identifiers, that those are demonstrative positive developments, some of which people feel are irreversible, and so can complicate a successful transition. All this talk is predicated on a two gender binary, though. Don't you understand? I mean, we're still talking about targets while all of this is being brought to you by WPATH, the folks who believe in the non-binary, and constructionalism, or gender, as a construct mindset.
I would like to talk a bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
That's what I'm saying is like a bit of a bait and switch.
There's so much here. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I tend to believe that I'm not alone in thinking that this conversation with you about these topics is very refreshing in that typically folks who belong to the trans community take a very hardline stance that this is the way things are, and accept that, and don't have any questions about it, because if you do, you're a bigot. And so these conversations typically can't take place.
All the more reason to be.
Right, which is very frustrating, because I think it's something that does deserve exploration and discussion. I think it's not so hard-lined. It's a very difficult. You can't be that way with people who are on the outside, especially if you're trying to get them to understand. You can't just say, hey, this is the way it is, and you can't question anything. No, you have to. People are going to have these questions, and if you shut them out, then you're leaving them to their own devices to make conclusions that could be wrong. And you're certainly not giving them the impression that you're approachable, and that this is a good thing. Like, I think it's safe to say that a lot of people who aren't on the leftist side of things immediately take the stance of when they hear somebody's trans, there's a sort of, there's an eye roll and sort of a shutdown. You know what I mean? Like there walls go up, and you immediately think, I'm in for a lecture or
Jesus Christ.
Or
yeah, I know.
The countdown starts now before I'm called a Nazi or a bigot. Like that's typically right. Like that's how most people view interactions with trans people. Because the only way you don't get that is if you just accept their word as God. Like I'm the trans person. I know what is right, and you just have to listen.
Holy shit! All the more reason. All the more reason. Fucking call him out.
Right. I agree.
Exactly.
But and I want to get to the WPAC. I want to understand that and explore that more and talk more about all of that. But before we do, so do you feel that there is a recommended minimum age to start treatment? Do you think that the kids should be allowed to start treatment, or is that something that, I'll tell you my personal opinion. I don't think anybody below the age of 18 should be allowed to transition. I think it's too important and too drastic a decision to change yourself to those degrees. And there's too many people who are after the fact coming out and saying, I want to detransition. I want to go back to what I was. I regret the decision I made. To change a child so drastically and in some ways permanently, and it seems harmful and dangerous, because if they do end up transitioning at an early age, and then at 18 or 20 they have those regrets.
Yeah, I think your
for their whole lives.
Your cluster is somewhere around 22 years of.
That 22 years would be your minimum age?
No, what I'm saying is detransition typically happens with people with, or I should say, the cluster is gender trenders who were born female, and they're in college typically, they're the sophomore year or further along, and they're pushing 22 years of age. So when you search detransition on YouTube, and you look for any video whatsoever, you're going to find about 50 suggestions of damsels sitting there in front of the camera going, I was non-binary, and now I've chosen to just detransition from that. Some of them have been on hormones, some of them have not, because WPATH says you can just claim to be X and become X. You can play around with the hormones and not really be on a regimen so solidly. And that's the rest of folks are not fucking understanding, is that you get to play around an awful lot, and also accuse clinicians and practitioners of not getting it right in the event that they mention any kind of constraints or requirements on you as a patient, because that's what WPATH does. That's it actualizes the activist culture of this non-binary and gender as a construct undertow. Now, if gender is a construct, and there's no such thing as gender necessarily because science or Bill Nye or fuck whatever, then it doesn't matter if you're playing around with the fucking hormones. The whole damn thing is kind of like a revolution, don't you know?
Yeah, right. I understand what you're saying.
And so like a lot of folks just fuck, and they do so by stating that they are detransitioning. And some of them are like no longer wanting to be a guy, especially like, folks who have been on the hormones, female to male transgenders, and they're coming out of it, someone no longer with breasts, someone who has facial hair and a funny voice, and a little bit of male pattern balding. That's pretty heavy.
It is, right. Those are things that are typically not experienced by by most women, and so all of a sudden you've elected to take on these life changes, and that can be. I'm curious. Before we go on to other questions, once again, because I feel like I'm remiss in not nailing down an answer. Is there a recommended minimum age?
I'd put it at, you must be I'm saying that you've got to pay for your own fucking bills. You've got to have a trade. I'm sorry. I'm so working class, and I'm really into practicality. I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about, do you have your own fucking address? Get your own fucking address. So I guess in current year, you have to be well into your 30s because ain't nobody leaving their mom and dad's house. Isn't that right?
That's more intensive than even I would.
Yeah, because I'm saying,
but I understand that.
Get a life first, and pay for it. Pay for that bitch. Jesus, you have to be responsible. If you can't just go on and off, that's ridiculous. You must be consistent.
I think that's true for anyone. Like that's just common sense, right? Like that's not just a thing that should apply to trans people. That's everyone.
Well, but I didn't have a smart time. I didn't have an app that reminded me, to take my stuff. I had to attend to it myself.
Right.
That's a lot different.
His third question is: are there alternative treatments you wish you would have pursued before such a permanent change?
I'm not sure. I'm really looking over this, trying to enter my pair of eyes. Back in like 2009. What would I have done?
As far as, or do you think there are other treatments that others should pursue? I don't mean to necessarily pinpoint you with the question, but kind of more in general.
Oh, it's fine if you were to pinpoint me, actually. But for others, wow.
I would imagine, wouldn't that be beneficial to kind of take minor steps before, and see if those work, or maybe it's not enough. Maybe they spur you to want to go for even more severe changes to transition further.
The older standards of care kind of did that. They had benchmarks that you had to. There was a criteria, and it was somewhat flexible, but the criteria was there. In that there was, you actually had to, illustrate that you wanted to transition, and the hardliners would say, live as a woman for about a year, and then we'll prescribe you a hormone. And a lot of folks, even during those times, they let go of that. They kind of said, you came back and they saw that, you were trying, if you will, and they felt confident. They would just prescribe you your third or fourth visit, seeing someone to work on this issue, because there was people who felt that they needed to see, people for psychological help along the way, or that's where they enter their. So,
was that something I'm curious about? Was that a standard that you had to deal with when you were transitioning, where before you were allowed to go through? Obviously not with the hormone treatments, because you were going down to Tijuana and getting those.
That's right. Get her done.
When it comes to, as far as surgery went, did they require that you see a therapist for a certain amount of hours before they, or get a stamp of approval from a therapist or a psychiatrist of some sort before they'd allow you to have any sort of surgery?
Yeah. So under the Harry Benjamin standards of care, you had to have a letter both from a qualified, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and those are different, and also an oncologist or a person that was prescribing you hormones. In early 2007, I switched from taking pills to doing subdermal, like pellets that they implant in my buttock. It's kind of like Norplant. Yeah, and so they're subdermal and they don't involve the digestive system. All I have to do is return every month and have it inserted under Dr. John Patrick O'Day. So
that's how I understood hormone treatments to be now. A
lot of them are subdermal. Not everyone. The gals are taking shots. Yeah, they're taking shots and some androgen enhancer pills.
Okay.
I'm really concerned that, in the current year, that people are going to see a psychiatrist. And, maybe kind of the questioning is, are you sure you want to transition? And
well, that's it. I'm sad to say.
Right.
I'm sad to say.
How rigorous is
no, because under WPATH it cannot question that. That in itself is big.
Now I want to get into that difference real quick.
Yes.
I want to make sure, but before we do that, Allison has a couple of questions, and I want to get to those real quick, and then I want to get into what is the Harry Benjamin standard of care, and that was replaced with WPAC, right?
WPATH, yes.
WPATH, okay, and then I want to get into what that is. So, but first, so Allison has a question about how high is the percentage of plastic surgery? I'm assuming among the trans community is what she means, I think.
Kind of funny. A lot of people they're all talk and then a bit of action, saying. So a lot of times facial feminization was a major part of the conversation a lot of times. A lot of people, they look in the mirror and they want to not recognize themselves. You know what I'm saying? And what's ironic is that after the surgeries are done and the swelling goes away, they still recognize themselves in the mirror. Just saying. Yeah. But no one else does, because there's some subtleties, like telling signs that are demonstratively masculine. And those are, you scrape away a little bit of bone here, break it, and just make it so that it emerges a little slightly.
So is that
shaping, and there you go. Yeah.
Is that pretty prominent? Would you say a high percentage of trans people do that kind of plastic surgery?
There are people who are non-binary having surgery, which I find is concerning. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's
they don't
kind of
identify
bizarre.
as trans. They're just neither, and they're getting surgery like.
Yeah, like that. Like the screenshot I showed you of the fella who had his nipple removed. This is a female to male transitioner that doesn't want to land in male world. It wants to be something else.
Okay, so I mean, I guess then the answer would be that it's a pretty high percentage of people, trans people, who are undergoing plastic surgery. Then would that be
people in transition actually land in one or the other. They would be really into either enhancing the jaw. Go ahead.
The question there is then what percentage of the trans community is in transition?
That's hard to tell, because in current year, just being an activist claims to not have a gender or a demigender, demi-queer, and all that other stuff can claim to fall under the definition, under that umbrella term. So then we're not really talking about people with operations. We're not talking about people on even hormones necessarily. We're talking about Jigglypuff, or whatever the fuck her name was back in 2016. Take this hate speech off of campus. That's also transgender because reasons.
What? So, I didn't know that. I didn't know
she claimed to be fucking trans. Yeah.
What?
Simply because gender is a fucking social construct. I know you want it to actually mean something else, because it would make sense that it would mean something else, where actually they flip the script and it's about constructionism in that they think that there's no gender whatsoever. I had to. I mean, my first reaction to this was, well, then go home. You're drunk. I mean, if there's no reason to transition, then why do you call yourself transgender? Where's the trans? Are we in transit? I mean, but
I've said this for a while, is that transgenderism hinges on gender meaning something. Like, otherwise, why would you switch? Right?
Right.
Well, they're not switching.
Yeah.
They say that they are affirming.
It's right. So
much. It's so douchey. It's such a pisser. Yeah.
The term and the community itself, in a sense, then has kind of been hijacked. It's become trendy in a sense. Would you say? Would you agree with that?
I would, yes.
Okay. I want to make sure I answer these other questions real quick. Do any of them ever stop getting surgical procedures after they are content, or do they ever become content on how they look? How high is surgery rate? Okay, so I think we've established that it's kind of difficult to nail down the percentage of trans people who are undergoing plastic surgery. She's asking, do they ever stop getting surgical procedures, or is there, for you, for example, was there a point where you decided, I'm done transitioning, I've met the standard I was seeking, or I hit the goal I was reaching for, like I've accomplished my goal, or is it just never ending?
I think I've accomplished my goal. I'm cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was a rough ride. Okay.
Sure, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
You're kind of an outlier when it comes to the rest of the trans community. I think we've established that, at least in how you perceive things, and how you approach things. Would you say that the same? Would you say the same for the rest of the trans community, or do you feel that that's different for them? Like, do they often reach their goal, or is it a common theme to see trans people just constantly getting surgeries and whatnot?
What I saw happening is people would, I guess on this subject, what I saw happen is that people would return from doctor shopping out in Bangkok, Thailand, and then they would wind up in the hospital because of nephropathy, and an American hospital would save their life, and then
wait, what's causing nephropathy?
I think it's the attempts to mimic female anatomy between your legs.
That's a botched surgery. That shouldn't be that.
But nephropathy happens, and a lot of times they have to do slight revisions to make sure that it doesn't spread, and cause complications. And so, a Reader's Digest version, you've done some paper mache work with human flesh, between someone's legs, and some of it will fail to retain the flow of blood,
right,
to specific regions.
You're talking about cellular necrosis.
We're talking about cellular necrosis, and so to stop that from snowballing and taking you out entirely, the more must be amputated, and typically it's these features. And so I'm seeing that as a follow-up that must be pointed out, that no one's fucking talking about. Okay. And it happened to me as well. I came back and I wasn't feeling right, and they sent me to the hospital, and the hospital, they did a whole bunch of tests, and they said it's time to go into the knife again, because there's a portion of your plastic surgery is not enjoying blood supply, and this could cost you your life. So sign right here. Like, yeah. So that was quite a surprise. And the following week, they did some more tests, and they said, you know what, you have to go under the knife again. And so that I had to kind of concede to that as well. I spent a whole month.
You spent a whole month undergoing
revisions to stop the necropathy. So
no shit. How many surgeries in total in order to get it under control to stop it?
So
I'm sorry. Did you say something? Because if you did, it cut out.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. 2 of them.
Hi. How are you? My name's Josh.
Hey, Josh. Hey, I had 2. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. What's that? I'm looking at the chat. I kind of posted something and then.
Yeah, I see you just posted a PDF of what looks like.
Yeah, this is an example of Harry Benjamin. And
okay, all right.
You can
so
see
let's.
Yeah.
One real quick question before we get onto that. Just one real quick one. Did you divorce your wife, or are you still married to her?
Yeah, I did, but I'm bad with paperwork. So yeah, it took it took us both like 7.5 to 8 years to finally finalize the divorce. And so
do you continue to have a relationship with her?
Well, we talk. Yeah, we've got this kid.
That's good. No, I'm glad to hear that. I know we didn't really answer your first question, Allison, about how high the percentage of plastic surgery is among the trans community, but I think it's, as far as I can tell, the conclusion to that is we don't really know.
I think it's kind of hard to tell because I'm not sure everyone gets away with it, but I'd say high 90s is good for those who are the kind of people we're talking about here, who have all the surgeries because they intend on embodying the opposite sex identity in every way possible. Then yeah, they would most likely have the what's it called, bossing of the eyebrows shaved at the level of bone, and then have the tissue, or the skin rather, tightened up in that region. They would lift the eyebrows a little bit. They would probably have their forehead pulled down a little bit, and they would even do more. Like some instances where people have like a little bald spot and they actually want to get rid of it and willing to spend $20,000 on the whole operation. They literally they would take sections of the hair from one place, put it into that spot.
Oh, right.
And then they would try to plant or put in what's called grafting.
Yeah, skin graft.
Yeah, they would graft, and then around that they would shoot in little. I guess they would remove your hair very far back of your neck, let's say, and then they would insert that around the margin to try to make it look more natural.
Oh wow!
So there's no hard break, and all this is and some people do go back for more, but I'd say the one follow-up surgery that I think Marcy Betty, is that her last name? No, Marcy Bowers. She used to be like one of the big names in America that would at least do follow-up revisions on people's vaginoplasty. It's called.
Okay.
What she would do is she would at least remove the bossing of the portion of erectile tissue that they leave in place, so that it's not prominent and visible. That's all.
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about.
So when you were born male, there's male genitalia. It has many parts, and one of the parts is the erectile tissue that's beneath the proboscis, or the portion of the pelvis that that you're anchored onto, okay, and it comes forward, and when you're erect, it serves a specific function, and it extends out. There's a small portion of that that's intact, and you still go to the bathroom through that tissue mass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, because you have to have a hole to pee from somehow.
Yeah, baby, yeah. It's the facts of life. You got to be able to do the stuff.
That's so fun.
But it sometimes it heals funny, and it looks aesthetically detracting from what you were intending. Did you want to look like a freak show?
Right.
She'll come by and at least make it look not as freaky. I think when you stand.
So she did surgical
revisions,
precision,
yeah.
Right, stylization or
exactly. Yeah. Those are the high 90%ers.
I got you. Your divorce, was that? I know you talked about how your marriage was was kind of falling apart prior to your decision to start hormone treatment. Was your divorce directly related to your transition? Did that help push it down that path?
It may have been. There might have been
destined for that anyway.
I think that might have factored in. I think it may have.
I can't tell if you're being like sort of facetious or not. I feel like I'm trying to model health. I may resemble the description. I'd have to say this is. I bet you there's a little bit of that. I believe you. This is a curious question, and after this question, I'm gonna stop taking any more questions because I'd like to. I know we're gonna go over time. So because we're 3 minutes before 9, and I'm not finished discussing this. I would like to continue. Adam, I know you're the one responsible for recording, and it's up to you if you want to continue. If you don't, that's fine. Let me know. Joel and Nicole, I know that you're sick, so if you have to go, same. That's totally fine. I'm going to keep the show going a little further because I would like to talk a little more about the standards of care. So maybe another 10 or 20 minutes. If you have that time, Robynne.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I do.
So, Adam, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
I'm doing all right.
Awesome.
So I know it's probably late for you, so if you have to go, if you need to stop recording, we'll continue.
No, I'm working on commissions right now, so I'm just painting while listening, enjoying this. So.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad. Why do I like sucking dick? I didn't know that I did.
Because it tastes like chicken. It tastes just like chicken. Come on, everyone.
All right. That's good to know. Gotta love Allison. This is why you get made fun of, you bitch.
Why? She's awesome.
She had a really good question, though. She said, "Is addiction a surgical procedure an issue in transgender community?" If I understand correctly, what she's asking about, like, it's a common thread with those who have plastic surgery. Like, there's a multitude of people who they get addicted to it, and we see the results of that. They end up with
holy shit, yeah.
Right? They go through these wild transitions. I mean, it's a transition in and of itself. It's like you've got those two brothers who looked normal, and now they look like I wouldn't even know what to call them, like melted fucking wax models. And then that woman who tried to change her face to look like a lion. Well, I don't know if that was her intention, but that's certainly what she looks like.
Oh, holy shit. Yeah. I knew this one guy named Greg from Chicago. Like, he was performance art. You know what that is, right? Like subversive theater. And a lot of these folks, they're like fucking communists This guy's he's an army vet. He was in Gulf World One, whatever, Gulf War One, in the early '90s, and so Gulf World War One, and so now he gets to be a vet and live for free and get free medical kind of stupid shit. And so he dyes his skin green. He puts the rivets underneath his eyes, and he splits his tongue, and he makes himself into Lizard Man. Everyone knows Lizard Man. I knew that faggot.
It's just wild that mean, to make those kinds of drastic
now that's
changes.
a little extreme, isn't it? But it reminds me of the. It reminds me of the Deutsche Damsel who wants to be Black woman.
Right.
Just for direction.
Allison, we're going to continue recording, but if you would like to still be unmuted, I don't mind doing that if you would like. If you want to be unmuted to ask your question, we're going to continue recording. So let me know if you still want to be unmuted. But I would like to. I'd like to get into standards of care, which is something that you expressed has changed drastically and not for the better, and that you've referenced the Harry Benjamin standards of care, which is
that was like like I'd call that the old school.
Right, it's what you call the old school, and now you have what you call the W path.
Mm-hmm. And W path is
Harry Benjamin standards of care. So what? I guess we should start there. Who is Harry Benjamin, and what were those standards of care?
Oh, holy shit!
If you can condense that.
Pardon me. I have to burp.
No worries.
Okay.
I know I've been having. I'm drinking a rock star to keep my energy up, and you'll hear me pause, and that's me like trying to hold back a burp. So I get it.
Boom. So, wow. Harry Benjamin, a guy from a really long time ago, and I think he came to America after World War II, and he was an oncologist, I think. And he got together with a few other folks and started working on the issue of transgenderism, if you will. I think there was a thing, if I remember this correctly, the Erickson Educational Foundation, and he got involved in trying to alleviate stuff like that. And he some of his whatever he was working.
So he established standards of care specifically regarding.
Yeah, he got together. He got together with a number of professionals, and they kind of put together a criteria for patients, And I think a lot of times what people did was when they transitioned, they would transition quietly, okay, and a majority of them was male to female. I think at the time, if they were female to male, most folks didn't notice because it wasn't a squeaky wheel. You know what I'm saying? Because you grow a beard, your hair goes bald or whatever, start sounding funny, and next thing you know, your voice fills out because that's what those powerful pharmaceuticals do to the human body. And there's no reversing that, so you don't even have to stay on those powerful hormones if you don't want to. There you go. That's right, Your Honor. This man has no dick. So you'll be the dickless. If that's what you're shooting for, you'd be there, and there'd be no taking it back. But the huge squeaky wheel is the father figure that wants to put on mommy clothes, and so how to bring that to a conclusion, give it some finality. These people put together, the people on the board of the Harry Benjamin Standards of Care, they put together a bit of a program that folks could apply to clientele to make it so that transition has standards. Of course, that was internationalized.
So the Harry Benjamin standards of care were international?
Yes, they were. You can see
I didn't know that.
the screenshot right there, or you tap the link and it'll take you to the full document. And that initial thing that what I was intending to do is giving you like a link, and then the first couple of paragraphs, if you will, to give you a comparison between the Harry Benjamin standards of care and the WPATH. Maybe what I should do is just like grab that, mix in.
You can. I mean, it's not
in two little posts. So,
well, my curiosity is, when did those standards of care first become? When were they first implemented, and how long were they used before they were replaced?
Send.
I threw you a curveball, did I? I didn't lose you, did I?
You did not lose me.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, I as I understand it, in the early 70s they had a loose, and it kind of picked up legitimacy, if you will, and recognition after the Cold War, and so by the mid 90s, they were participating in, I think it's called DSM-3. Is that right? DSM.
The what?
The DSM-3.
Oh, okay.
The standards of mental care, kind of like a.
Right. Okay.
Anywho, so I guess the full story of Harry Benjamin as being the old school is something I'm very familiar with. However, I wish I was more impressive with names and dates and where his address was, whether or not we could dox him. But instead, I think what I want to move on to, or for that matter, with bringing up Harry Benjamin, is that it was predicated on a binary. Everyone, that's basically it. Okay, it was predicated on a gender binary.
Right. Okay, so that's what I want to get into is
exactly because WPATH is out. Hey, gotcha. There's all these genders and it's gender expression. And of course, they leave the door open for gender constructionalism, which is part of critical theory in current year.
The old school standards of care, this Harry Benjamin way of doing things, left the standard. It established a way to. It established guidelines for transitioning that left the control in the hands of the experts. Would you say that's correct?
I would say that was correct. Yes.
Those making the decisions were the clinicians and the medical professionals themselves.
True.
Okay, so now WPATH comes along, and that's what replaces the Harry Benjamin standards of care. Now, when did that replacement really start, would you say?
It was implemented early 2011.
Okay, so the Harry Benjamin standards of care were in place for a good 2 decades or more.
Yeah.
So that's how things were being done, and then WPATH comes in, replaces the Harry Benjamin standards of care, and flips things in complete reverse. It takes the control of the path of transition and the medical diagnosis, as it were, and puts it in the hands of the patient themselves. Would you say that that's correct? Essentially, leaving it to the clinicians were there just to hear what the patient said they were doing, what they were dealing with, and what their specific needs were. And so they were just there to hand out the pills that the patients were then saying, this is what I want.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just read, you can hear the SJW stuff just dripping through.
Oh, sure. Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
read
the overall goal of the SOC, or standard of care, is to provide the clinical guidance for health professionals to assist transsexual, transgender, or gender non-conforming people with safe, effective pathways to achieving lasting personal comfort with their gendered selves. In order to maximize their overall health, psychological being, and self-fulfillment, this assistance may include primary care, gynecologic or urologic care, reproductive options, voice and communication therapy, mental health service, in example, assessment, counseling, and psychotherapy, or hormonal and surgical treatment. While this is primarily a document for health professionals, the SOP may also be used by individuals and their families and social institutions to understand. They can assist with promoting optimal health for members of this diverse population. It's kind of funny is that they keep including the non-binary thing and gender non-conforming. And so they still retain some cultural appropriation of Harry Benjamin, give or take a few fired members for being total Nazis for not going along peacefully. But they're more than happy to make citations throughout some of their treatment here with citations that predate this fucking attitude, because you can see citations in the early 80s, early 70s, and all of that, and somehow it's getting tied into this the gender concept. Now, when I first heard this being offered, there were people who were introducing it, and they were saying that those who were seeking help, because they were showing this like video, those who were seeking help could be directed to educated WPATH clinicians and practitioners. So don't settle for someone who requires a criteria for you to fulfill in order to get hormones and stuff. We have this new approach where you sign an NDA and you immediately get things from us. And they're really Plus, they also have gendered workshops in high school. In addition to this, is gendered workshops in high school, and they're planning on expanding that to elementary school. And there's not a fucking thing you could do that about it, because they basically they're basically doing the abortion underground with your kid, where
that's disgusting.
I know, but fuck, that's what they want to do. Now,
here's my question: the NDA, you're talking about WPATH saying don't settle for somebody who follows the old school Harry Benjamin ways.
Exactly.
We have a new approach, and if you sign this NDA, you'll get the medicine that you want, or hormone treatments, or whatever it is that you believe is specific for your needs of care. You can have it right away, as long as you sign this NDA.
Yeah, well, they defer the liability. So right, when you send a non-disclosure.
So if anything goes wrong with your care, if you regret it later, or if it causes any issues,
you've released that.
They're relieved of liability through that NDA.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
So,
thanks, Obama. Yeah. Go ahead.
The fuck? My curiosity is what clinicians are going along with this, because that seems.
There you go. I mean, if you argue
against the very,
you lose your job. What are you saying? You argue back, and it could cost you your job. Any questions? Of course not. So just shrug your shoulders and come along quietly.
This is people's health and well-being we're talking about. I mean, especially when you're dealing with a community with a 40% suicide rate, you can't just take. I don't know.
I don't know, but the folks
I would not be able to continue in that field of medicine or in that career path if I were told you have to. You know what I mean? Like if I were involved in helping people transition, and I were involved in clinically diagnosing people and helping them, making sure that they're getting the standards of care that are appropriate and right for them. And all of a sudden I'm told your expertise no longer matters. Whatever they want, give it to them as long as they sign this NDA is so, what's the word I'm looking for? There's several words. It goes against the Hippocratic Oath. It's dangerous. It sets a bad precedent. It's absolutely negligent. It's negligent. What's the word I'm looking for? I keep saying that. Intentionally so. And I don't understand. Is it a money thing? Is it because there's money to be made?
I'm going to do the Colin Faraday thing. I don't know why. I want to tell you what I can't explain why. I can't explain why, the Hebrew Israelites are so off their rockers. But but they are because of an absence of constraints. Isn't this not true? They're out of an absence of constraint. You grow the bullies in the garden. These are like weeds.
You're absolutely right.
But you're not allowed to call them weeds. They're not weeds. Remember, you're not allowed to call them weeds. So yeah, just don't pull the weeds out anymore. Otherwise, it's white supremacy. There you go.
That's wild. There you go. I mean,
now when you react, then we find someone who say, "Hang on," and we'll call that conservative, and then we will call that name. We will say that you're not educated. You're part of. You're not working with history, or however they say it. That's
right. You're not on the right side of history here.
Correcto. Yeah. There you go. So.
That's crazy to me, and I think you talking about an absence of constraint resulting in bullies, I think explains what I was talking about earlier and how your approach is opposite from what I think most other people see from the trans community and those who support it, which is very much along the lines of bullying, where I'm me, and you have to accept me, and these are the words I use, and you have to use those words, and these are
with the pronouns
about what it is to be trans, and you can't question any of that because that makes you a bigot. Accept me and accept what this is, no questions asked. And it's very demanded against, very bullying, and that absolutely explains that. The question is why? Why did it come to that? Why were those standards of care changed? And the only thing I can think of is there must be money to be made. If you're right, if you're allowing these people to undergo hormone treatments, which I'm assuming hormone treatments cost, do they not? Robynne, are you there?
I'm here. They cost. They cost more now than ever before because third parties are getting them for people to make available for no cost at all at the deferred liability. or NDA clinics. So yeah, so they're more expensive now due to the military procurement equals $5,000 helmet effect, circa early 70s. Same shit, different vista. Yeah, when you're not paying for the thing that you're paying for, when you're not paying for the thing that you're enjoying or fuck whatever, then someone else is paying for it and they pay dearly.
Right.
That's
so would you
economics
say
101.
right. Would you say that the increase in cost for things like hormone treatments started around the same time as the change of the guard from Harry Benjamin to the W path?
Yeah, they did, because there was
So it seems obvious to me that that's exactly what we're looking at. There's your why. It's the money.
Well, but that's only one vista, because a majority of these people claim to be 30 genders in 1 week. Majority of them are not on. Well, I'm saying that it's egregious that they have in some way institutionalized body modification for people like the one guy,
which is frustrating.
Took off his nipples. Yeah.
Sativa, are you still with us? Yeah, she is. So check this out. I just want to make an observation that I just had. It's curious to me. You're talking. What you just said is they've institutionalized body modification, and yet we had that. Sativa talked about that one guy over in England who is being brought up on charges for helping to do just that, to offer body modifications that doctors don't or that won't, and that these people can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, because nobody believes that we'll off ourselves if we can't split our tongues.
But I think it's selling. I think it's what we're talking about here is kind of telling regarding the
that was
reasoning
beautiful
behind.
Thank you.
She usually is. I think it's very telling regarding the reasoning behind why. I think it highlights that it's a cop-out to say, well, this is harmful and dangerous. It's bullshit. It's about the money. Because if you're correct, Robynne, in saying that they're institutionalizing body modification, the only thing, there's no difference from what that guy's offering, because except for the fact that he's getting the money and they're not getting their cut. And that's why he's getting charged. That's why he's going to jail. And that's what this is all about.
Yep.
And that just pisses me off. It's really frustrating that you are foregoing people's mental health and state of being, their emotional, physical, mental health, just for the money. You know what? If you tell us you are whatever it is that you tell us you are, fucking A right you are. You want pills for that? You got it. Here you go. And that's ridiculous to me.
I know it's ridiculous.
It completely throws out. And this is semi-personal for me, only because I was a hospital corpsman, and this is the kind of thing that specifically made me not continue in medicine after I got out of the Navy. It was because I saw a massive difference. When I was in the Navy, you didn't get paid exorbitant amounts of money to fucking do your job as a field medic. You got paid the same rate anybody else did. That was your rank. So the medicine and the hospice became about the job. It was about the job. It was about caring for people for the sake of caring for people, and that was lost in the civilian sector. That did not exist. It was about the money, and I saw that, and I didn't want any part of it, and I didn't go that route. I could have challenged the state. I could have become a specialized nurse of some sort, but I didn't want to do that because of this specific reason, because it's all about the fucking money, and people's health goes out the door, and that is a fucking problem. And as much as we're talking about, the issue with healthcare right now is single payer or whatever, that's not the issue. The issue right now is healthcare should be about healthcare, not about the fucking money.
Or control.
Sorry, I wanted to get to that, and then I go off on rants. But I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, you see what I'm saying, right?
Tell me what's eating you. Tell me. Very disappointed. I guess if the world wasn't flawed, it wouldn't demand your attention. And I'm seeing. When I was looking into the subject, it's another thing I wanted to bring up, and I think we've pretty much kind of touched on a little bit of the changing of the guard and the hard break, give or take a few people losing their job positions. The HB board, when WPATH came to take credit for all their work and kick out a handful. I think about 2 years later, around 2013, they recommended that there was sexual harassment, and they were including gender identity in a thing called the colleague letter. Look at this. What the hell are these things called? Look, I've been looking these fucking up. Seen too many of these.
Not entirely sure.
I know. A colleague's letter is what it's called, and they issue it to basically everyone in a specific field. And these were Obama's letter to a colleague, and in a school that the dear colleague letter. God, we all can't seem to say the word that we're trying to reach for. In the back of
it was about Title IX.
Great matter. So Title IX kept getting revisions, about 4 or 5 of them, all along the way. And the first set was in 2011. Then the follow-up, I think it was in 2013, is where they appended what sexual harassment meant, and they included gender identity.
So somehow, how is gender identity specific to?
Boy, yeah.
What'd you say? Sexual harassment?
Yeah, under Title IX. Fuck.
So
look this up.
Are you saying specifically misgendering? Is that what we're talking about? Is misgendering considered sexual harassment?
It can be.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not fucking kidding.
How do you justify? How does that make sense? How does somebody explain that? How is it sexual harassment for me to either way, either mistakenly or intentionally misgender someone? If I call somebody who's trans, who's female to male, ma'am, and they get mad about it, how's that sexual harassment? That's just it's rude. But I don't see the sexual part of that.
I
don't agree with that. Sexual harassment is the harassment of someone's sex. It means harassment of a sexual nature, which I think is totally different.
Yeah, well, OCR.
Right. So
was interested in.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What they were interested in, a thing called I think pronounced Yogyakarta principles. And those explore a lot about individual expression and, of course, gender expression. And this meeting, like 2006, had a lot of lofty liberals meet in Indonesia. And this kind of became the catalyst. So when this makes its way into Obama's administration, it kind of compelled the OCR to add this to not only the dear colleague letter, but recommendations in how schools are going to perform things, and they set up test cases in DC and in Virginia. So, and I was watching Virginia School, and they were saying that just to change arrival time to accommodate how thick the traffic was took about 12 fucking years straight.
Jesus.
building things usually takes several. But when these new and interesting demands on the entire school system in Virginia, and they went down the list saying how many of these were, different parishes, counties, and how many schools were in them and how many people it concerned. They said we were compelled to conform to them top down with no dialogue whatsoever, unless, of course, you wanted to go ahead and lose your position, be locked out, or asked to leave, not return. In a matter of weeks, So that was what was strikingly different, and of course, it gained the ire of people, and of course, you know what happens, that people they'll go to whoever will help them, and so the Family Research Council was responding to this, and people were saying, "Wow, religion's not my thing." And they're like, "That's chill, because the Heritage Society's got lesbians. You can go ahead, and why don't we all do this?" It's called the Cross the Aisle meeting, where you have radical feminist lesbians saying, we're not allowed in spaces anymore because of, what we refer to as woman erasure, where non-binary faggots come through and they fucking shit all over everything, essentially. Excuse my French, but they go beyond, and of course, you get these weird people who either are into, hella bod mod. They're not even becoming female, but because of that shell game and the bait and switch, they get to use your fucking bathroom, and there's nothing you can say about it. Otherwise, you're a bigot, and I get to punch you even though you're fucking bitch. And all this has transpired since. Anyway,
wow.
And I think it's really important to point that out. So to distill it down is if you thought Evergreen College in Olympia, is that Oregon, right? Can't remember.
I think so.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I'm
with Eric Weinstein. Brett Weinstein. Brett Weinstein was the one who was ousted by apoplectic non-binaries, by the fucking way, and they came to kick him out because he was. You go figure. And all Nazis are Jews. Just ask some of our new Congress people. It's that kind of opposite day was happening in little places all along the way during Obama's first term.
Yeah. No, I think I know. I remember seeing all that,
and a lot of polarization.
Yeah.
Where there was perhaps
it's just increasing
some
and
sort
getting
of isn't it? Because there's this collectivist undertow where there seems to be a script that you have to already know, and if you don't, you just might get into a lot of trouble. Whereas it was, you'll notice that, say, prior to like 2008, special exemptions for certain people were okay,
right.
Mostly. So in other words, Chicanos and folks who were obviously of sub-Saharan origins but were born in American culture, they could do a lot of stuff and get away with it.
Right.
And even those rules are changing, because old tweets can kick you off the music awards, where 70% of everyone being awarded is 18% of the country, but never mind all that.
Professional victimhood and the outrage community and the outrage culture, the culture of outrage.
Well, only elites are, because the establishment is goddamn that we're all caught up in the McMartin school of apoplectic politics.
Common sense has just been thrown out the window. It really has.
It's been replaced by, a witch trial.
Victimhood. Allison, you are unmuted on our end. So you're more than welcome to join the conversation. We're at 9:30, so we're half an hour over our usual time. First, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all of this, Robyn. I really appreciate that. I definitely have more questions, especially when it comes to you and your involvement or experience personally within the trans community. If such a thing exists, if there's any, what your experience or personal anecdotes regarding that are.
Okay.
But I know we don't have a lot of time, so perhaps maybe you can come back next week, and if you're willing to undergo some more questioning and continue this conversation.
Yes, undergoing further inquiry.
Well, I mean, it's certainly it's a topic I'm really interested in, and I definitely have more questions, but I don't want to keep everybody for any longer than I already have. But definitely, Allison, if you had something to say, now's the time. I want to give you a few minutes to go ahead and ask a question or two, and then I'm going to call it a night. So here you go, Alice.
Hey, Allie.
Hi. Okay, so first off, Augur, sexual harassment is the harassment of anybody for their sex. It's not sex. So even sexual. Yes, it is. You are a complete utter retard. Trust me.
Sexual harassment.
Do you have a better mic? First of all, yeah, you sound like you're talking to us through a potato. You have a better mic? Allison, are you there? Allison?
Like, hold the volume control up to your mouth.
Where'd you go, Allison? If I'm the retard, why are you the one who's fucking trying to talk to us through a goddamn potato?
I'm gonna grab the potato and I'm gonna tell you, Avi, you're a retard.
I've never heard.
I'm not
going to say that you're entirely wrong, Allison, because I don't know that for sure. But I have never personally heard sexual harassment defined as the harassment of anyone's sex. I've always understood sexual harassment to mean harassment of a sexual nature. So if I were to say to you, you're a woman and you're stupid because you're a woman, that would not be sexual harassment. Not under my definition, because it's not.
Yes, it is.
Hold on. I'm just explaining. This is my understanding.
Sexual, even the act
you're a stupid woman and you're stupid because you're a woman, that would be, it would certainly be misogynistic. But I don't believe that falls into the category of sexual harassment. Not under legal standards. But if I told you that you're a woman and all you're good for is being fucked, now that's sexual in nature. That's sexual harassment.
No.
You
even
both of those
no. It's the same.
It's not the same.
It is. Listen, Augur, sex, the act of sex is sexual. Because the opposite sex or the same of the sex?
You don't say.
No.
What the fuck?
Sex is sexual. This is why we have you on, Allison, for enlightening takes like this.
You have
every
no
time
idea
I learn
how
something
high
new.
I am.
God damn it.
And every time I point that out, every time I point out that you said something ridiculous, you're always like, I'm just really high. Like, at this point, I don't even know if I believe you. I think you're just making excuses.
Edibles. Listen, I've been cooking edibles since 4 a.m. Trust me.
And the fumes have got to us all.
That explains a lot. So where are you getting? When did you hear this? Are we talking? How do I ask this question? Your definition of sexual harassment. Where are you getting that from? And are you saying that is the legal definition of sexual harassment?
I'm not a lawyer, you dumbass. What I'm saying is in general.
I've never heard that.
You're somebody who's being harassed for being a certain sex. That's exactly what it is.
It's harassment.
It is. What are you talking about? It is. That's exactly what it is.
Where's the sexual part of me telling you you're stupid because you're a woman?
The fact that the woman is a female, which happens to be a sex.
That just
am I not correct?
Be your gender. That's
no, because there's no gender. Correct.
I'm
sorry, we've eliminated gender because Bill Nye, circa 2016. So
Yeah, gender is spectrum, and also completely made up.
Allison, do you get upset at being called a female?
It's about science.
Oh,
it's time for butt stuff.
I'm not one of those feminist people.
It's always time for butt stuff. It's the only thing I agree with Bill Nye.
Holy shit.
Hey, Auger, I have a question.
I know you do. I have an answer. Woman.
You're always into butt stuff, right? So say that you hook up with this girl, right? You fuck her in the ass. She's really great, blah, blah, blah. You're really feeling for her, blah, blah, blah.
I'm into this.
And then she tells you that she's a tranny.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're never touching anything, I'm serious.
Does that count as blah, blah, blah? I feel like that's kind of like groundbreaking information. Like, I don't know if that counts as blah, blah, blah.
How would Auger feel?
Well, I have before I can answer that, I have a couple of questions.
He wouldn't know what hit him.
I do know what hit me.
No, I would be pissed in general if anybody lied to me in any relationship. I don't care what sex they were.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with your statement there. Now, in this scenario,
but most people lie.
Did I just meet her? Did I just meet her and we're having our first night of sex, or have we established a relationship over months?
Wait a minute, Aga, wait a minute. Most people lie. In fact, if you're fronting, it's a little bit of a lie.
Robynne and I hate most people. Trust me.
No, I do understand that most people lie.
You're in a cabal together.
It's ridiculous. You should never have to deceive.
We're the Long Island accent cabal.
I'm from Boston. Thank you very much, Mr. Willy Wonka. I see that little profile. Every time I see that picture, I think of Willy Wonka. That little button that pops up.
We're getting off topic here. So I want to get to the nitty gritty of your scenario here. So is this a post-op or pre-op person? Because I imagine she'd have to be post-op for me to be convinced, right? Like if she's got a dick, you can't hide that from me, really.
Trust me.
She wants you to trust her.
Some shit.
Okay.
I'm not
this is a Boston approach, by the way.
In one position,
I would honestly say,
like I want to do all kinds of things with all of your boat. There's really you can only hide your dick for so long before I'm gonna go reaching for stuff, and you're gonna have to shine. It's gonna come out. I'm gonna figure it out. So
I'm saying post-op. I'm saying post-op.
I have detailed file.
Okay, post-op.
Post-op.
And again, is this an established relationship? Like this isn't our first night of sex. We've been together for a while.
Oh, come on.
I think that's an important distinction.
Is that a yes or a no? And oh, come on. I don't know how to take that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I do.
Okay.
She does not sound like she knows about.
Allison, are you there?
Allison, darling.
No, this reception keeps on blocking in and out. Like,
that must be awful.
Is it our first night together, or have we been together for a while?
Post-op, as in you hook up with a girl.
Holy shit!
I'm talking about in general.
Is she on like a 3-minute delay?
It's stormy weather here. I don't know what to tell you.
Blame it on the rain.
Like the future, when you're thinking that you're going to have kids together, because she appears how she is, you don't know that she is not going to ever be able to give you kids and stuff like that.
I'm not looking to have kids, so I don't care about that.
I am talking about in general. Obviously, we don't ever like. You should honestly have a vasectomy.
Why should I have a vasectomy?
You do not.
I am so beyond confused.
What I thought she was talking to Adam, actually.
I know. Like, wait. Yeah. We went from one scenario to another. Like, hey, would you? How would you feel if somebody told you, "Hey, I'm actually a man. Also, you should get a vasectomy." Those are two entirely different fucking.
Yeah, where
discussions.
Does the vasectomy come in? Because I mean,
you
asked how far along is this relationship, and then she responds post-op, which obviously does not make sense, and then somehow there's a vasectomy involved.
No, I meant as in Auger should never reproduce kids himself. We were talking about reproduction, like in general, like the guys with the girl.
I want to have kids now just to spite you.
No, oh my God.
She's helping the country.
Like, I kind of now want to just go around, have one night stands with people, and intentionally try and impregnate them, and then bounce and just unbeknownst.
Well, first of all, you're not tall enough to even get close to a pussy.
Actually, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. I don't know why I haven't been doing that up to this point.
Holy shit!
Right? Like,
exactly.
Well, Allison, you have brought me to a realization, and I appreciate that. I should be knocking up as many.
You're gonna have children that. On purpose of me, I thank you that I have rented out the space in your mind to me.
Allison, Allison, are you on the pill?
Oh my God, fuck that. I had Nortiplant. Like, I will get my tubes tied, like, straight out. Like, I don't want kids.
Wait a minute. Do we have Nortiplant or did we tube tied?
Let me ask you this.
My tubes tied later after I got divorced because you can't get your tubes tied when you're married without husband's consent.
Are you capable of being impregnated right now as we speak?
Why are you asking that?
Post?
I assume he's going
post surgery, yes. Physically, right now, no. Without a surgery, yes. But no, right now, no.
Wait, I'm not sure I understand the answer. What do you mean?
So a surgery, you can get them reattached and have kids. So yes, if I had a surgery, I could have kids. But no, right now, no. Thank God.
Oh, all right, then I guess I won't ask if you want to meet. I was gonna. Never mind.
Oh no, I don't do goat anymore, honey.
Yeah, you do. You fucking do. You love goat.
No, I told you.
Goatish men are every woman's fucking.
Listen, I do the darker skinned. I like the darker skinned.
I can. Hey, you know what? Shoe polish is like just a few bucks at the local.
Yeah, but then you want to talk, and I know that you sound like a bitch. So no, like trust me. I'd be annoyed at your screaming for me fucking you in the ass.
That's awesome. What the hell's going on?
This is Robynne. This is exactly how conversations between Allison and I go.
This
is so standard. This is why typically we don't unmute her because this is
my God.
Yeah, the show will go off the rails, and the fact that it's pushing midnight where I am.
I know. So
bless your heart. Thankful. I didn't even listen. I had the opportunity to talk before, and I didn't. Right? Did I not talk before?
Did you have any questions for Robynne?
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, you made me forget, and I did really have like a couple of questions.
Yeah, that's our fault.
You're an asshole.
It's our fault.
You got a couple of minutes to figure out what you want to ask, because we're going to end the show real quick here. You're not making.
Uh-oh.
All right, and I'm muting her. Okay, thank you, Allison, for your wonderful contribution.
Allison, I do love you so much. I really do. This is my favorite thing about you. as much of a, I can't tell which of us is the bigger asshole, but I think it might be you. But I love that about you, and I want you to know something. You come back next week, and whatever questions you have for Robynne, you can ask then. I would love to give you more time and let you. You're right. I am the asshole. I'd love to give you more time and ask questions.
Thank God.
It's really late, like Adam said. So, and that's the only reason that we're not continuing. I
want to ask everyone to imagine Allison getting pulled over.
I would hate to be that cop. You know what? I'll bet she gets out a ticket that way. I'll bet the cop's like, you know what? Skip it. Have a good night, ma'am. Like, I bet you anything. He's like, you know what? Never mind. Just drive safely, ma'am. Have a good night. And with that, I would like to say we are out of time. And everyone, have a good night. Thank you to all of my hosts. Adam, thank you so much for staying fucking an hour over. I'm so sorry that I kept you as long as I did. I didn't plan on that. But thank you very much for being there and recording. Joel, Nicole, I hope you feel better. Sativa, thank you so much. Robynne, I can't thank you enough. Immensely, honestly. Thank you so much for talking about all of this with us. Okay. I hope it was as much fun for you as it was for us.
Oh no, it's cool.
Right on. And you'll come back next week then, and we can finish up.
Same bat time.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. All right. So that being said, I'd like to dedicate this episode to, as always, the lovely Noah Valdez. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. See you next time. Go home.